sir.
So yeah, what's up, man? How's everything going?
Oh man, everything's great, brother. Like I was, telling you in our little pre-recording period, just life
Yeah,
is, very blessed, fulfilled. Thank God, a good, strong, healthy family, most importantly, in this, mad world. Usual challenges with,
yep,
having a family and
sure,
career and a home and trying to
oh
handle
yeah,
all the responsibilities and at the same
yep,
time, have some, fun and
yeah. By the way,
relaxation.
we'll do
Cheers,
another
cheers.
cheers.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sure there's many more of those to come here.
Mm-hmm. So
What are you drinking, by the way? I got
I'm,
I'm doing a little tequila,
ooh,
but I'm also got a little bit of the um the pussy high
oh,
noon with it. So
okay, yeah,
so
yeah.
tequila high noon.
A little
So
sidecar high
yeah.
noon.
Yeah, I don't want to
Nice.
give the impression if somebody watches 2 hours of this and they're like, "Did that guy drink nothing but straight tequila for 2 hours?" Which I can do, but
Right.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
not do that
Yeah.
tonight.
And
But
that's why the show's called Off the Rails, right?
yeah, man,
It's gonna get off the
yeah,
rails. No, I'm doing
I love it.
just a whiskey, just doing a little old fashioned, a little simple old fashioned.
Oh yeah, nothing
So,
wrong with that.
but I got
Nothing wrong
like
with
two,
that.
maybe three most, and then I'll
Okay.
feel it the next day pretty good. So
Yeah, yeah,
I
you
gotta
know
be
what? I'm at
careful.
the point where two or three, I definitely feel it, but somehow it doesn't stop me sometimes before my wife walks out here on
Oh
my
yeah.
deck where I like to drink, and I might just go and be like, "Whew," whips that glass. So, but it's all good. It's
Yeah,
all
it's all
good.
good. So, hey, so I was just thinking about it before we jumped on. I was like, Rick must have thought I was crazy, right? Like literally, we haven't spoken in 20 plus years. We're obviously friends on social media, so we kind of tap into what you're up to, what the family's up to, right, from
Sure,
afar. But I
sure.
was like, you know what? I'm putting this podcast show together, and I'm thinking, what's some interesting topics, that we can talk about? And for people that know me real well, I will eventually kind of divulge. Yeah, I had a little rap group back in the day, late '80s, '90s, and everyone's like, "What? What? You had a rap group? Like, what are you
I
talking
get a
about?"
lot
It's
of
like,
that. I get a lot of that too.
do you? So it's
Yeah,
like that's an interesting topic right there, right? And
right,
then who could I reach out to, right? I'm like, well,
right,
we had a I don't want to say a friendly rivalry, maybe at best. You had your crew, right? Your rap
right,
group and our rap group, literally at the
right.
same time, right? So
Literally.
I was
Yeah,
like, let me reach out to Rick, see if he's down to talk about,
yeah,
our
yeah.
experiences of starting up a rap group and maybe some of the stories that went down and
Absolutely.
some of those fun things. So appreciate you, willing to
Yeah.
kind of jump on and talk
No,
about it.
more than willing. I mean, the truth is, I didn't think you were crazy. I didn't know that you were doing this podcast thing. I think it's great. Um, I've done a couple more related to like my current career than anybody asking me about
Right.
my rap career, if you could call it that.
Yeah.
So like I love, like my kids know, and obviously like every once in a while there's somebody in my adult life who either finds out or wants to know more about it, and so I love to sit
Right.
and tell what those years were like for, at the end of the day, what were we? A local rap group that ended up
Sure.
staying local and being short
Right.
lived. But yet, those memories are some of the greatest. And also learned so much just about, working hard and work ethic towards what you want. Because it
Right.
was something, like you and Rich, like I really, really wanted, we wanted our group.
Yeah.
So even though, it didn't work out in the traditional sense, I always say it did work out. I mean, first of
Sure.
all, my whole career became in the music industry.
Right.
And second of all, and I do things outside of the music industry as well. And I know that like my first job was trying to get a record deal. And
Right.
I know that like I developed my work ethic through that effort.
The hustle.
Right. So the hustle. Exactly.
Yeah.
So while that might not have been successful in the traditional sense, like, yeah, we worked hard and we got signed, it definitely put in me that when you want something, you really have to hustle towards it
Oh,
in all
100%,
ways. So
right?
yeah.
And it's funny because sometimes I'll even think about like what would my life be like if I did quote unquote make it? Like if I got signed to a record deal and I had some
Yeah.
like decent success, like I probably wouldn't turn out good for me. Like to be honest with you, I was pretty immature back in those days, and I've always feel a little sense of empathy for these athletes who are 18, 17, 20 years old and they get these huge multi-million dollar contracts. It comes with fame and fortune and all these other temptations that come their way. I'll be honest with you, Rick. You probably are more solid than I was at that time, but I probably would have just I don't know. I found myself dead in a gutter after like
No,
2 years or something like that. It would have been
dude,
pretty bad.
it's so funny that you mentioned that because it's so funny. Like, there's an expression that I've learned in subsequent years, like, man plans and God laughs, right? Because, like, not to get all, and I'm not like super religious by any means, but I am spiritual. Like, so, like, God definitely knew that it was not a good idea for
Yeah.
Rick Rosenberg to become a rap star in his early 20s.
Yeah.
God knew,
Yeah.
because I would have fucked that up in every
Oh yeah.
which way.
a hundred
First of
percent.
all, I know that, like, and I was with my, and my wife Robin for as longer than me,
Oh
really.
yeah.
Like, I was with Robin when that started. So, we're married now 25 years. I don't think there's any doubt that, like, if all of my dreams came true, that
Right.
we would not have been together, which means
Right.
I would not have had, the three beautiful children that, mean everything in the world to me, and to me are, not perfect people, but perfect for me.
Right.
So, like, I think of it in those ways a lot, like how my life would be different, and
Yep.
like why I might, how I might have been fulfilled in certain ways, by, accomplishing, I mean, what did we really want? Like, money and fame, right? Like, you
Right.
wanted it, like, be,
Yeah.
well, you want to be respected as a rapper, but I knew, like,
Sure.
I wasn't really that great. Like, I knew
Right.
that
Yeah.
always. I was like,
Same.
I'm okay. Like, I could get
Yeah.
by in
Now you say
Nulo.
that, but there are some groups out there that were way worse than us that made it, right? So
I know.
so
Our timing was bad, and we could talk about that too. And I have a
right.
theory on that. But
Yeah.
I totally believe, like, I wouldn't have been ready to handle the responsibility of, financially,
Yep.
like, think about life on the road, and just, the partying aspect, and
Oh
then,
yeah.
just the female aspect of it that, just comes into play, not because you're anything special, just because,
Because
you're
you
famous,
just because. Yeah.
just because.
Exactly.
So I do believe that, like, and I've seen this come true in so many other ways in my life since those times, that, like, God knew what was better for me than what I thought I wanted. God knew that that wasn't going to be a good thing
Yeah. I
to
couldn't
have a
agree
long
more.
term successful life. So yeah,
Yep. 100%. So the other thing I was thinking about too before we got on, I was like, the unique, and I think the most people who listen to this podcast will know us pretty well, right? But for
right,
those that don't, and they trip over this somehow out there in the
right,
world of social media and stuff,
right.
um, we kind of grew up in an era that was very unique from a standpoint of rap music, right? We were kids when hip hop was born, right? This is
Yeah,
born in the 1970s. I think you might
yep.
be a year older than me, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
was I was asking Robin about that. So I was class of '87. You were '88, right?
88. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So a
Class
year
of 88.
exactly.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
On our champagne glass for our prom, it was "Make It Last Forever." It was the Keith Sweat song.
Keith
So
Sweat. I love Keith
Keith
Sweat still.
Sweat. Oh, he's
I still listen
fantastic.
to Keith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we witnessed the birth of hip hop, as
Yeah.
kids. So my
Yep.
question to you, like, what's your earliest memory of like rap music? Like, was it something
Yeah.
that you, I don't know, heard on the radio, or just
Yeah.
kind of someone introduced to you? Like, what was your introduction, I guess, into the rap?
You know, knowing we were having this conversation, I was thinking, right? Because now at, like, 55 years old, like, these things are not just like quick to come to your memory. Like, so, and you didn't,
Yeah.
and just for anybody watching, like, you didn't give me any list of questions coming. So
Nope.
there was not like prep or anything I could do, but I knew the general, direction of our conversation, or at
Yep.
least where we were going to start. Where it goes, we'll see. So I thought about that, and I remembered the first song. Okay, and I don't know what year this came out,
Yep.
but it had to have been, I don't know, very early '80s. So I was maybe, 11 or 12. So not super. I mean, young, but not,
Yeah.
crazy. Or maybe it came out a little earlier than that. But it was Rapper's Delight. Okay, it was
Sure.
Sugar Hill Gang.
Oh yeah.
And the first time I heard it was at the rink, the roller skating rink
Roller skating
in
rink, big
Newville,
time. Yeah. Yep.
right? So I was there. I was one of those pussies who put skates on and leaned just on the thing because I didn't know how to skate. I still
Yeah.
don't. Okay. So I was just trying to, like, catch a vibe and be cool. And there were all these
Right.
kids dancing around with, like,
Oh, doing
matching
these
black t-shirts, and, they were all crewed up,
splits,
and
crazy tricks,
yeah,
spins. Yeah,
yeah.
nuts.
And then my mom dropped, me off with maybe one other kid. I don't even remember who at that time, but so I was just like, but I would see like how people responded to music and what the music was. But I remember hearing that, and
Yeah.
then shortly after that, my sister, who's like 3 years older than me and not a rap head then or now ever, she's 58, but her and her friends were like obsessed with that song. So
Yeah.
they were like recording it, on the radio, like on a cassette, and
Sure.
then they were stop listen. They were writing down the lyrics, and they had like handwritten lyrics on the a note notebook pad. So like that was my first experience with rap,
Hmm.
but that didn't get me like hooked or crazy into it. I just remember
Right.
everybody loved that song,
Sure.
and I was no different. My
Yep.
first musical like passion was really rock, and it was Van Halen.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
got like really, really into Van Halen. I
Yeah.
had up in my attic, like I didn't live up there, but we had like I guess a playroom or whatever, like,
Sure.
and it was the only place in the house. My mother, who was very meticulous about her house, would let us like tape things to the wall because there was no like wallpaper back then. That was a big thing. Well, it was just like wood panels. She didn't give a shit what we did up there, and I had out all posters of David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen and the
Right.
band, and I loved, loved, loved. Um, Van Halen. But then I remember the rap song that came out, and it's not that surprising when I think about it, how into Van Halen I was, that really like grabbed me was Run DMC Rock Box,
Oh. Oh,
because
Rock Box. Oh, it
it
was
was
so good.
it was rap, but it was like
Hard.
that hardcore
Dun,
guitar
dun,
in
dun.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so good.
So like where a lot of people would be like, oh, Melly Mel and
Right.
this and that,
Grandmaster
like
Flash and
Grandmaster Flash and all that, which
yeah.
I went back to obviously once I got
Sure.
really into hip hop, because I wanted to understand and know and understand these early classics. Like I was like early, but not super early. It was like Run
Right.
DMC Rock Box, which to me was like
Sure.
a rock song. And then I was hooked. I mean, with
Yeah.
everything, the look, the
Oh.
culture, the sneakers, and then being in Neuro, of course, could add so much to that. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
but that was the beginning for me.
Yeah. No, I hear you. That those were some classic songs. And I think looking back for me, it's kind of like you mentioned earlier. It's a little hard to kind of piece the memories together because we're talking what 30, 40
Yeah,
ish
40.
years ago, right? It's been a minute.
30 would be
So
kind, dude. It's 40
so
plus.
any fact checkers, go to hell at this point, right? These are my memories and I'm keeping them, right?
That's it.
But for me, like you, right? All those sort of early songs were coming into the rinks and you would hear them, right? And then if you remember, like it wasn't really on mainstream radio at all, right? But it was on college radio. So I remember like everyone had a boom box back in those days, right? And you would take your cassette and it was like late night and I would just hit like record and go to bed. And then the next day
Right,
I would like it was like a
right,
treasure. Like what's on there
right.
today, right? Like
Yep.
what
Same,
songs are on there, right?
same.
And the ones that kind of like grabbed me the most, and I'm with you on Run DMC and Rockbox. That is like a classic. Still to this day, listen to that song. You're not turning it off.
Of course,
You're gonna listen to that song.
of course. Yep.
Um, but for me, it was Boogie Down Productions and
Oh,
KRS One.
beautiful. Yep.
And like
Yep.
I remember as a kid, like when Scott LaRock passed away, like I was all bent out of shape.
Yeah.
Like he died, and I was like bawling as a kid. Like
Yeah.
I was all attached to this Boogie Down Productions crew, and
Yeah. It was a big deal. It was a big deal.
huge
Yeah.
deal. And then with KRS One, like I still think he's one of the best rappers ever. He's probably underrated because he's not really known from a mainstream perspective, right? But he's
Right.
one of the best in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
and then it was probably like moving. I don't know timeline and stuff like that, but when Dougie Fresh and Slick Rick did Lottie Dottie,
Oh,
like
Lottie Dottie. Yeah.
dude,
Forget it.
oh my god. And that's
Forget it.
how and that's kind of how I remember with Rich. Rich is my partner in crime for the U
Yep.
Dogs. We'll get into that in a
Yep.
little bit.
Yep.
But him and I became friends. I think it was middle school first, and then into high school, like in that kind of transition. And I
Right.
remember in Rye Playland, they had like this music booth where you can, do like, you could listen to a song and sing over it, right? And we went in there and we were like, hey, look, um, we don't need any music. This guy's going to do the beatbox, meaning me, and Rich was gonna rap. So I was Dougie Fresh, and he was Slick Rick,
Right.
and that
And you
was
did
our
Lottie
first.
Dottie.
We did Lottie Dottie. Yeah.
I don't think I ever heard that rendition.
Oh, that's in
You
the
know,
that's
you know,
that. It's on a dark
Snoop
web
remade it.
somewhere. It's in the dark
Yeah,
web.
well, like Snoop remade it years
Yes.
later,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I never heard the U Dogs version of Lottie
Oh,
Dottie. I guess
that's an
I probably never will, huh?
maybe you never know. Which is funny because some people ask me, it's like, well, okay, you're in this rap group, like, do you have anything to share? And I hope for your sake you've kept some things.
I have a lot, yeah.
I have
Really,
nothing. I have
really.
nothing. And even Rich, because Rich, and if he's listened to this podcast, hats off to him. I give him all the credit in the world. He was our producer. He was the
Yeah,
guy digging
yeah,
into crates, doing all the
yeah,
beats, doing all the
yeah.
sampling, putting it together, and I would just come in,
And
do
rap.
my verse, get the hell out of there.
It would just be like, Tim, make sure you write, and that's
If
it.
it matter of
Yeah,
fact, if we made it big, he'd be the one making all the money because he was the music producer. But he doesn't have any like record of anything. Like we have the only thing we have, which is kind of funny. We did this is later on, probably towards the end of our run. We had a bunch of different managers throughout our little time, and one guy he wasn't even like a hip hop manager. He was like a new wave, almost like I don't even know what we would call that genre, but he was not a hip
okay,
hop guy. But he kind
okay,
of he got enamored by the fact that two white dudes were rapping, I think, and he was like,
right,
I think I can market you guys,
right,
and he
right.
ended up getting us this opportunity to sing with modern English or to do a rap song with modern English.
I remember that.
Do you?
I
Yeah,
do. I
yeah.
don't remember the song, but I
Oh,
remember. Well, I remember when I first hooked up with Rich. So I really became friendly with Rich, and then you through Rich, from what I
right,
recall. Like we knew each other,
right,
but I think I became friendly with Rich, and I remember him telling me about the whole modern English thing. And I just remember, at that time, it's like, you're on, dude. You're recording with like people that are on, people that are
right.
signed. Like,
And if I'm not mistaken, I think we recorded in Chung King, like a legitimate
uh,
studio. Like
I remember hearing about that.
it's
Yeah,
pretty legit, right? And
yeah,
now, for those that don't know modern English, I wouldn't call them a one-hit wonder, but they kind of are. Like there's one song that's I'll
What was that
stop the
song?
world
The
and
world
melt with
that felt
you,
with
right?
you. Yeah.
Which is a classic, right?
Yeah.
That's not the song we were on, obviously, right? And
It's
it's
a
funny
classic
because
though.
it's a classic song, and
That comes on the radio. You can say to your kids, "Yeah, I worked with them.
oh yeah,
I,
they had a
I rapped on
song.
one of their songs."
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, yeah, exactly. But it's funny because the name of the song is called "Beautiful People,"
Right.
and I'm like, well, and we weren't gangster rappers by any stretch of the imagination, right? I don't even know what
Right.
style we were, honestly, when I think about it. But we were no gangster rappers, but we were certainly like, I got to write a verse for beautiful people,
Right.
like that's kind of like the extreme. Like I
Right.
don't know where to go with this, so we
Yeah.
wrote the most
Even if you're not
corny,
gangster rappers, you're trying to be like cool, somewhat hard.
right,
You might not have been saying, I'm a gun toting this, that, but you
right.
can't be like beautiful people is not something that you could really like
No, like
implement into
where
hip
do I
hop in
go
those
with this?
days.
But I'm
Right.
also want to respect the fact that they got a goal in mind, and here's the song, here's the beat,
Right.
and no disrespect to modern English, but it was a little on the cheesy side, right? And we had to come together and put this together, and we did this most
Right.
cliche hip hop thing. But unfortunately, that's like the only, like, maybe not the only, but the only one of the only trails of our existence was that.
Right.
Like all of
So
our
that
cassette tapes and or
right.
or DAT tapes, all that stuff is
It's gone.
somewhere in
Yeah,
La La Land.
really?
At least that's what I think. Now, I say that, but we did distribute a lot of our cassette tapes to a lot of friends and family, but no one's ever come forward yet and said,
It's
"Hey,
like,
I
hey,
found this
you want
diamond
this?
in the rough. I threw this, it's in a landfill somewhere, for probably
It's
this 30
funny.
years."
So you know what it is with us? Why I did end up with a lot of stuff, not everything, but a lot. So a couple of things happened. So we late in our effort to be, a group and signed, DPC, we started working with a guy named Jeff Stewart.
Okay.
Jeff was pseudo management for Eric Sermon and
Ooh.
the Hit Squad, kind of, right?
Okay.
So we ended up, like you mentioned, what's the studio you mentioned where you recorded?
Chunking.
Chung King. So we ended up recording at Rock and Reel, which is out in Long Island, where a lot of those got EPMD and Keith Murray and
Sure.
Redman were
Yeah.
all recording, and that was like the we had been in studios, but like your knockoff studio. There was one in Larchmont called Clockwork we worked out of. There was one in this guy Larry LPA Studios. He was in New Road. Then he had a little apartment in the city. Where you're standing like in somebody's shower with a mic and like stocking, ripped up stocking over something to, get the pee noise out. So, but we ended up at Rock and Reel, and through that experience, and we recorded like 5 or 6 songs with this guy Pat Steele, who was producing, who was a great producer, and that like started the whole thing of like really having things like professionally done on DAT and labeled and organized. So I kind of I kept all of that, and then I went back at that time, and then when I got like into the music industry for my career, like as a behind the desk job, Glenn Doobie, who is one
Yep.
of the
One of the crew. One of the
one
DPC
third
crew.
of DPC. Glenn loves the history, so Glenn has pushed me for many years. Like,
Oh,
where's our
digitized
stuff? Like,
stuff.
get it digitized, like upload it to
Oh,
when you had to upload it to iTunes as an MP3,
yeah, yeah,
and then
yeah.
download it back down to CD. So I did that for a while. Then I lost track of stuff, and then Glenn, like in the past handful of years,
By the way, shout off
has
to Glenn Doobie.
Glenn Doobie G. I speak to him regularly still. So
And
he
Chris,
was
by the way.
yeah, we'll get into Chris. Don't worry, Chris. Chris I speak to 10 times a day, every day. Glenn and I touch base, once a month. But yeah. So Glenn was really big on like our history. He wants me to, being in the music industry. He's like, he wants me uploading stuff to YouTube and releasing stuff, which I did release 2 of our tracks, like it's out there on Apple and Spotify. Although somebody told me recently, like, it's not there anymore, dude. I'm like, I guess when you hit 0 streams after a certain amount of time, they take it down. But anyway, Glenn was really a catalyst over the last 15 years
Yeah,
to
that's
me
awesome.
going back and finding things and getting it like, into the cloud. Okay.
Right.
So we do have a good amount of stuff. Now there's a lot of missing stuff. Like once in a while I remember a track, or Chris will say, or Glenn will say, dude, remember that song we did, back and we were here? And I'm like, oh my God, that was hot. Well, we think it was hot, right? And I'm like, I wish I had that still. So there are things I have no access to.
Do you remember like how many songs like approximately you guys made? Like if you had to guesstimate?
40 to 50?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yep.
I'd say in that range. And I'm not counting like the upper echelon stuff that we did together.
Sure.
Which was not that many. I guess maybe we did 5 or 6. And you only jumped on a couple. You were like fading out at that time. It was like me, Chris, and Rich. And, Glenn was like going his way, which was not to be a rapper. It was just like, fuck rap.
Right.
I'm not trying this anymore. And I think I think we're getting married kind of young or whatever. Right. But 40, I'd say 40, like 40 to 50.
Yeah. That's
maybe, give or take. Could be 60, it won't be less than 40. I don't think it'd be more than 60. And maybe I have 20 of them. But it's kind of the later stuff. Like I wish we had the early stuff, which sucked. We were doing stuff like without a producer.
Right.
Like Glenn really taught us a lot of that, like going and getting like break records and doing, recording the break and just making a song out of one loop and whatever.
Right.
Because Glenn had history like before all of us in this thing.
I kind of remember that. I don't know why I remember that, but I remember that. Pause for a second, Glenn, though, Rick. Like, how did DPC form? Like, what was obviously maybe it was Glenn. Maybe he was the catalyst of saying, "Hey, let's do this." But what was the whole formation of DPC, and who got the kind of the crew together to do something?
Yeah, no, it's.
And is there a 4th member that's like lost out there somewhere?
No, there's not. Well, that's kind of not true. Frank Vigiletti joined
Frankie.
later. He joined later, and he was just going to be like our hype man on record.
Oh, like a Flavor Flav.
Yeah, he did it on like 2 records. He's like, this isn't for me. You guys are DPC. I'm not. So we were like, okay. So Frank
Yeah.
would be the 4th Lost member, but he wasn't in from the beginning, and he came in on like 2 songs, and that was that. So after college, really, right after college, Chris and I had graduated both from Temple University in Philly. Glenn was here. Glenn worked for what is now Verizon. It was 9X or New York Telephone or whatever it was. But we were just hanging out a lot. Like that was the Davenport crew, Glenn's whole crew.
Yeah.
Me and Chris became friends with them really through Dan Facina, his cousin Kevin Hines, may he rest in peace.
Yep.
Was, part of that whole Davenport crew. And so Dan was our friend, and Kevin obviously had all his friends, and we all started hanging out together. And then, me and Chris were, in the Davenport crew. I lived in the north end of Rochelle. I was like DPC for life, right? Yeah. So we became close with Glenn, and we would just be hanging out, drinking 40s and talking rap and listening to rap. And, Glenn had like this history. Like, so Glenn was like, we always called him the original white rap kid of New Rochelle. He was 2 years older than us. But like, he grew up with Lord Jamar from Brand Nubian down in that area. Yeah. So he had like old cassettes with him and Jamar on them and everything. Sure. And then like Brand Nubian was, blowing up.
They blew up.
They did. And so we thought it was like, wow, like, like I said, like if you did something with somebody who was on, it's like, wow, like you're somebody. Yeah. So I don't remember really if it was like Glenn's idea. DPC was not our first name. We were called, I remember this as we're talking, word to mouth, not word of mouth, word to mouth.
Word to mouth. Okay.
And then, we thought that was corny kind of. And Glenn had said, why don't we be word to mouth, parentheses DPC, Davenport Crew. Right. And I was like always a little bit like, I was conscious of the fact that like I was this Jewish kid from the North End. Right. Like, and New Rochelle, as was like very diverse and very, socioeconomically and all these
it's a melting pot, 100%.
Melting pot, which is what makes it in a lot of ways such a great place, especially 100%. Back then. So I was like conscious of it, like I don't want to be a poser, like I'm not from, like you guys, I think it's so cool that like this whole crew called the Davenport Crew, and why you call that? Because you all live in this area called like the Davenport area, but I'm not. But eventually I got over that.
And I'm like, didn't Chris live on Pelham Road?
So he ended up living there. Okay, so he lived across the street from me in the North End in Larchmont Woods. Then when his parents split, he moved to Larchmont for a while in his mother's apartment, and then he did move to Pelham Road. So that was also kind of like at the time, and Chris was like, yeah, well, I'm down here, so fuck it. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll get over this fact that, I'm not really, from this side of town or whatever. Right. Yeah. And then we just dropped the word to mouth and went to DPC. So exactly like who said, or there was like, I can't remember a moment, Tim, where somebody was like, hey, let's be a rap group. But I know we were all down and like, Chris's stepfather, Bob, who was actually my father's colleague and best friend, he like gave us $1,000 to like go buy, which at the time was like,
that's a lot of money.
Take this seriously, yeah. So like we bought like Tim, I don't even know what the machines were called, like the beat machine and a mic,
sampling or something like that,
sampling
or whatever.
Machine, whatever. We set all this shit up in Chris's apartment, and we just started making tracks, and we, I really caught the bug from a business side and wanting to get on and take it more serious and get into studios and all that. So
right, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
So I can't. Long-winded answer. I don't know the exact like. Hey, we are now. It wasn't like hands up. Forces form. We are now
right.
A group. Like
We
agreed to do it and we started with it and
and it just happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, did you guys have a manager, or were you like self-managed?
So we had a few that we kind of went through. Most were not truly established managers.
Right.
So our first manager was Chris's brother Dave. Dave was a few years older than us. He loved the music. He loved being in the business. He had been working. He lived in Philly, and he had been working like with a promoter doing like live local shows down there, which was like to us the greatest connection we had to somebody in the music industry. And he was Chris's brother, and we trusted him. But we were learning together, right? Like he didn't know what the fuck he was doing. I mean, he's like a big brother to me to this day,
Sure.
but he didn't know what he was doing. And, I was always very, I was business minded even when I didn't know anything about business. Like I just,
Right.
I didn't pretend to know. I just, I was ambitious. I was very
Sure.
ambitious. So I was the one who kind of like, if anybody, like, if you look at like New Edition, Michael Bivins, right? Like he can't sing better than you or me, but like
Right.
his role in New Edition
Yeah.
ultimately became the business guy. So
Right.
like so it started with Dave. Everybody I'm about to say was them and me, kind of
Yep.
driving, right? And not to say Glenn and Chris were wallflowers by any means. Like they had their opinions and things or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
But like I was the one who woke up every day thinking like, what can I do to move us forward?
Right.
Um, so after Dave, and Dave like never got fired or anything. Like it was just like we had this guy, and how we met him, this guy Tony Fairweather. He
Oh,
was
Fairweather.
he was a postman, a mail delivery guy in New Rochelle.
Yep.
How we hooked up with him exactly, I'm not sure, but he did have connections.
Yeah.
Somehow we made him our manager. I can't recall if like we signed an actual
Hey, when
management
you handle the
contract.
mail, you handle all lines of communication.
You must see some names on there on the
Oh,
envelopes that you
yeah,
can get us to. But
yeah.
I really don't remember
He
how
knows
that.
where everyone lives, knows how to contact people. Don't sleep on postal workers, that's for sure.
Yeah, how it's weird. He was in the business. He was managing somebody else that had a buzz or had a bite. Um, but I can't recall exactly. But we worked with him for a while, and he got us some like meetings. Like, back then the whole thing was, can you get us a meeting to bring our tape up, as you know,
Right. Yeah.
and play our shit, right?
Yep.
So he got us meetings, and supposedly, and I was at the one meeting, he got us a meeting at Quest Records, which was Quincy Jones's label.
Oh, damn.
It
Okay.
was an imprint under Warner Brothers.
Sure.
And there was a woman running the label who was a pretty established A&R exec. I don't recall her name. And she liked us. Like, she told me straight to my face, I like you guys. I like you a lot. I think what you're doing is cool. And, the whole, white thing, I think is cool. I think that's like a happening, coming thing. And, you know, um, so I was impressed. Like, all right, he got us in that door. But it faded like pretty quickly. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm sure I wasn't a help because I was probably calling him every day being like, where's the paperwork from Quest? Where's the paperwork from Quest? Are we getting a
Right.
record deal?
Yeah.
What's the
Right.
advance? What are you doing? What'd you do today for
Yep.
us?
Yeah.
I was pretty relentless, right? So
Yep.
that faded out. Again, no hard feelings or anything.
Sure. When you
Then
had those contracts or when you had those managers, were there any contracts signed or was this more like handshake agreements? If you
So with
remember even.
Chris's brother, there was no contract, obviously. I think we did have paperwork with Tony Fairweather.
Okay.
Um, I think we did, and I think it was a real contract that we had a lawyer look at. One of our dad's friends or somebody who was probably like a real estate lawyer was like, yeah, I'll look at it for the kids
Yeah.
and whatever. But I think we did with Tony. And then there was a guy whose name I'm going to forget that was also short lived, but this guy worked for, he was an A&R guy for Shang Records.
Okay.
Shang was really a reggae imprint, I think either under Sony or I think Sony. And they were, it was an imprint given to a very established reggae producer, like reggaeton named The Specialist. He
Okay.
had produced some really big reggae stuff. Anyway, it was his label. He liked us. The A&R guy there said, I want to be your manager. We didn't understand anything then about like conflict of interest. Like, are we going to get a deal at
Right.
Shang Records? Like at that point, it was just like, yeah, like
Sure.
if they want to sign us and you want to be our
Right.
manager, I would have been
That
like, why
was the
don't you also
goal.
be like my accountant, be my doctor, be,
Right.
like,
I'll give you my
you know,
kidney. Yeah.
yeah, whatever. I'll
Yeah.
sign over, whatever it is. It was just he was in the building, wanted to be our manager.
Right.
With him, I think we did not do paperwork.
Okay.
And then we kind of caught on, like, in speaking to him at this point, not that like we were or I was any expert in the business, but he would say things about the financial side of how it works that I knew didn't make sense.
Right.
I'd be like, well, this doesn't, no, that's not the way it works. He'd be like, if a CD sells for, $15 and you have, 15 points, you're getting, you know, $12 on that CD. Like, I was like, wait, no, that math is bad gorilla math. Like, it's not adding, it's not adding up. So he started to say things where I realized, like, I don't know if this guy's a
He
real
was
executive.
disqualifying himself, basically. Yeah.
Big time, big
Yeah.
time. So we
Hmm.
jettisoned him quickly, and then we ended up with the guy Jeff Stewart,
Okay.
who was working with the Hit Squad, and he was our manager. We were signed to an official contract.
Yeah.
And what happened there was, our whole thing was, is Eric Sermon going to sign us to like Def Squad Records? And
Right.
why is that not happening? And he was like, I'm trying to do my own thing with that, and they're not looking to add any members to the Hit Squad. And then, Eric Sermon, well, they had already gone their separate ways at that time, but then this guy ended up getting Eric Sermon blew him out. Something crazy happened with them,
Okay.
and he moved to Atlanta and pretty much got out of the business and whatever. So that was near like the end.
Right.
The good part that came out of that is we stayed working with the producer that I had mentioned maybe before the recording, Pat Steele, who was working out of that studio, Rock and Reel in Long Island, where a lot of those, Keith Murray and Redman and Eric were recording. We ended up doing our best songs ever, what we felt were our best songs, with Pat Steele as the producer. And they let us work in the studio for free because at that point they like really
That's
believed in
huge right
us.
there.
Yeah. Oh, it was,
Yeah.
at that time it was,
Yeah.
it was gigantic.
Because think about it too.
Um,
Back like today, in today's day and age, there's so much opportunity for kids to basically, from their laptop, to do on the cheap, really good quality music.
oh,
Back in
dude,
those days, we were living in an analog world.
totally,
So you
totally.
were sampling, and of course, sampling is pretty much illegal now. But we didn't have the resources that were
No,
available to the kids
no.
today or
In
past
in a lot of
15, 20
ways,
years. Yeah.
in the recording ways, in the being exposed ways. I mean, Chris and I talk about it, so time Glenn and I talk about it too. Like, if social media, forget the recording part, which
Right.
definitely that's huge. If social media existed, like, we definitely feel like we would have made an impact because, we had the hustle and desire. And, I joke around like, I never say I was like, Rock Him or anything, but we were pretty good. Like, we had some really good songs.
Yeah.
And I feel like with our ambition and like the way we learned how to hustle, if we had social media to apply that to,
Oh,
we
100%.
think it would have been a different, and for you guys
Agreed.
too,
Yeah.
So yeah, so then that was pretty much the end of the management story. Like, after that, I'm getting to like, I don't know, 95, 96. I'm like engaged to be married. Like, I, got to get a job. And,
Might be
you
time to
know,
hang up the mic.
yeah, it was kind of like, hang it up. Then when we did the upper echelon thing, which we were trying to just treat like a fun,
Yeah.
casual thing. Although in the back of my, mind, in my heart, I'm thinking to myself, hey, maybe this is what it was supposed to be.
Right.
It wasn't supposed to be
You
Tim.
never.
It wasn't supposed to be the U Dogs. It wasn't supposed to be
Right.
DPC. It was supposed to
It's supposed
be
to be right.
upper echelon.
DPC dogs or whatever. Upper
Yeah,
echelon. Right.
whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and Glenn was just like,
Yeah.
he was like God, like at that point. Like, he was just like,
He.
do whatever the
Yeah.
fuck you want. Like, because I like always
Right.
respect, like,
Even
hey,
the
dude,
song that I did with you guys, that was my last rap I've ever done.
that was your last
That
recording.
was
I
my
wasn't far behind you, bro. It was a
final
couple songs.
hurrah. Yeah.
You didn't leave
But
too. It's not like the legacy carried on for another decade. Or
yeah. Yeah.
it was pretty short lived for everybody at that point.
Yeah, and I think we did that. Didn't we do that in a studio in like Larchmont? No, was that like in New Rochelle, like a studio, like
Yeah,
in
you know where it
Mamaroneck
was?
or
By like
Larchmont? Like
no, it was in New Rochelle by
it
Canal
was like an
Street. That
old abandoned like warehouse or something, right?
Canal Street. What did it say? What did it say? Waterworks or something? The building. It was like
Yes, I
this.
think so. Yeah, yes, the old Waterworks building.
It that ended up becoming a restaurant, a couple of different restaurants for a while. I don't
Okay.
know what it is now, but the guy owned the studio. The girl, remember the girl?
Yes.
She was like the engineer, and she owned the
Yes.
studio, and then she sang up. She was a singer also.
Yeah. 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 Yep.
I think that was Rich's relationship. He hooked up with her somehow. So all that upper echelon stuff, I think, was recorded there with her as
Gotcha.
like the
Okay.
engineer, and then she did vocals on a couple of tracks. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty much The rap. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No pun
You know,
intended. It wrapped up.
yeah. The funny thing, with the whole like record deal and managers and all that stuff, I would say that the first time that Rich and I got introduced to a good opportunity, and I wish we got to connect with him soon because he's gonna like memory check me for sure. So this is probably 93% accurate. But I forgot which manager introduced us to this guy. Oh, it was that um, indie guy. The indie guy was he was connected. He had some connections. The guy that got us connected with Modern English.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He connected with this guy Dan Crown. Dan Crown is from the Crown Plaza family.
Okay.
Like he's got some dollars. And if
Got
I'm not
some money.
mistaken, the Crown family had like minority stake in the Yankees and the Bulls. Like they had some
Okay.
coin, right? So
Okay.
they said, "Hey, we got a meeting set up in Manhattan. We want you guys to go. They want to talk to you guys, kind of size you up, talk to you, right?" And I think the guy's name was Scott. Last name, no idea, but his name was Scott. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And so we rolled up, and this was the first time that I've ever experienced like Manhattan wealth. Like it was pretty crazy. So I remember
Right.
going down, and we get into this elevator. Elevator opens up on the very top floor, and we're not in the hallway. We're in this dude's apartment. Like
Right.
he had his private elevator stopping off at
Right.
his
Right.
place, and there were
Gotcha.
like maids walking around with hors d'oeuvres. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, I'm like,
You're like, we fucking made it.
I'm like, oh, this shit's going down. I should have worn
we
a
got
tie.
we got we got pass around hors d'oeuvres. We made it.
Right, exactly. I'll take a hot dog with some mustard, some wiener dogs. And we sat down, and Dan Crown, I think his name was Dan, I'm pretty sure, sits down, and he's talking to us, and he's listening to our demo. And this guy's probably like our age at the time, knows nothing about hip hop, but he's got money coming out of his ears, and probably just likes to dabble in stuff, right? Just I'll throw some money your way, blah blah blah.
Right.
Now this is where it could be a little sketchy. That's why we need a fact checker like Rich to come in.
Right.
But anyway, so as I remember the story going is, look, I'm going to give you guys $300,000 to do an album, but I want 51% stake. So basically, telling Scott to his face, "Fuck you, I'm controlling these guys," right?
Wow.
So Rich and
That's
I are
crazy.
like, "Sounds good to us." like we didn't have any loyalty to Scott character, right?
Three
We're
hundred
saying
grand.
300 grand. And by the way, 300 grand back in the early 90s, what's the equivalent of that today?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
A million. It's
Million,
yeah.
million two, or something
It's a
like
lot.
that.
A lot.
A lot to like hire some
Listen,
good
even
ass
if it was
producers,
equivalent to 300 grand today, it's still a lot. Like that's
right?
yeah. That's
Exactly.
I'm just re-icing here. Sorry if I'm
Yeah, no, I'm about there with you.
all right.
So make a long story short though, we go back home, right? And we're kind of like you, right? I might have been the one more of the managerial stuff. Rich was more on the producing side. He loved that stuff.
Yeah.
And I kept on harassing the Scott guy, hey, what's going on? And he was like, I'm not going to relinquish, I'm not going to relinquish control. I'm not giving 51% to this guy.
Right.
And I'm like, well, kind of like, and maybe we misplayed it because I probably should have told him, was like, look, dude, we will never do anything with you at all.
Right. Like let us go.
We'll let that
We'll throw you
contract
10 grand.
vanquish. Just take the 49%, like
Right.
whatever. Like just relinquish
Right.
control.
Right.
And whatever happened, we misplayed it, and it never went down, obviously, and we never
Yeah.
had that 300K in our pocket to produce all this
Yeah.
music and stuff like that. So that was probably, I would say, the closest that we
Yeah.
got to maybe like
A shot.
a shot at a real attempt where you
A
get
real
some
shot.
money, you
Yeah.
get some producers, and you can
Yep.
make 4 or 5 good quality songs in real studios with real producers. But
Yep. Yeah, no, I get it, and we certainly had like our own experiences with, you know, I don't want to say promises, but like hooks where you felt like this could be it, like somebody with real money getting involved, whether it was, a label showing true interest or somebody independent like that who had money and like wanted to get behind you, an athlete. We dealt with a couple of those situations.
Oh, really?
I'm trying to think. Well, I guess that's later, more on the business side, when we weren't really DPC anymore, just things Chris and I got involved with. We worked with a handful of celebrities and athletes who wanted to throw money into, maybe at that time we were going to be a label, not necessarily for us,
Oh,
but
right. Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But, the other side of that, and this, and this is true of business in general, but certainly the music business, a lot of people like to talk, right? And even when they have the money, there's certainly, situations where their appetite for the business is very short lived, right? So, you know, I'm trying to make you feel a little bit better. Like it might not have really come around. That check may have never been
Right.
written because I've
100%.
been around a few of those where there's
Yeah.
somebody who did not make their money in music. They're not living this.
Right.
Talks like they're gonna, and they might be well intended, but then when push comes to shove, they're like, "I'm not gonna do this." So,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
funny, and it reminds me of, I mean, obviously, like we talked about earlier, growing up in New Rochelle, how
right,
awesome it was, right? Melting
yeah,
pot. We
yeah,
were around so many different people from all walks of life, right? And
yeah,
and it was such a great experience. But also, we experienced a lot of like con and hustling, right? That environment. The
no
record
doubt,
the record business, and we'll get into this in a little bit as well, right? You
yeah,
you may make a living in the record business
I
to this
do,
day, right? Music business.
yeah,
But it's a shady freaking business, right?
can
Like
be, yeah,
it can be. And back in the day for sure, right? And I kind of look at my experience in doing this, and of course just growing up around New York City, you can identify con now, right?
right,
Really pretty good, right? Because you've
yeah,
been conned a few times, right?
yeah,
I remember going down as a kid trying to get a fake ID and just,
right,
getting punched in the chest for my $20, right?
right,
right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I can
or
kind of
Playland or
identify,
something, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's kind of like an education, if you will, all by its own, just kind of living in
It's
and
true.
around a big city. So,
It's true. It's true. And Neuro certainly, bought that. I mean, look, and I'm, as I'm still here to this day. I mean, I never really left. I mean, I left to go to college in Philadelphia, and my wife and I lived in Larchmont in the same building you lived in, actually. But other than that, I've been in Neuro. Like,
yeah,
Robin and I settled here. Um, it wasn't like a goal, like we're staying in Neuro. Like it just went that way. Like she had
right.
family here. We wanted to stay in
Yeah,
Westchester when we
yeah.
were,
Robin's
ready.
family's South Side, I think, right? I think
Yeah, she's South
South
Side.
Side, right
Hmm.
next to the elementary school, Jefferson, right? Like
Across the
in that
street from
across the street.
Jefferson,
Yeah, I
right
remember.
across the street, Wayman
Yeah,
Avenue, 156 Wayman.
yeah, yep.
Um, so when it was time for us to like settle and buy a house, when we were renting in Larchmont, wanted to buy a house, we would have loved to stay in Larchmont, but we couldn't afford to stay in
Oh,
Larchmont.
Larchmont
So
is it's still very
yeah,
beautiful.
it still is,
Yeah.
and we were like, we looked around other places. It's like, so a house in New Rochelle was $50,000 less, and I'm going back to when we bought our house in 2002. So I'm going back 22 years now, to just past 22 years that we're here. So a house, if you wanted to be in Larchmont or Rye or Harrison, the same exact house that we ended up buying is, 50 grand more at least in those towns. And we were like, why? Because they don't have diversity. Like we love
Oh, right.
diversity. Like
Sure.
we
Right.
grew up here. Like,
Yeah.
I think about at that time in my life, like, everything I love about my life comes from being from Neuro
Cultured.
culture,
Yeah.
having friends from all walks, racially, religiously,
Right.
economically. Like
Yeah.
we never thought like that as kids in New Shell. Like we,
No.
people say it's not like just a thing. Like we didn't see color, we didn't see money. It wasn't like, oh, this is the way we are, and this is the way that. Like it was
Right.
just like you said, a melting pot, right?
We were all in the same sandbox,
that
basically.
that was it. You go to New
Yeah.
Rochelle, especially once you get to the high school. But even I went to Barnard, which was at the time a full elementary school. The school was literally split between Larchmont Woods in front of it and City Park behind it.
Right.
And as you know,
Yep.
Larchmont Woods was, middle to upper middle class affluence, and
Yep.
City Park was projects.
Yeah.
And so, but we all go to that elementary school, and you're a kid. What do you know that people are different? Because they're not, right? So,
Right.
so, so like, so that went on for our whole lives. And then I went to, as did Chris, to Temple in Philly was just like a much more giant version of Neuro.
Right.
So when it came like to settle, it wasn't like looking to get out of Neuro. It was like, why would we couldn't afford to anyway, but why would
Right.
we pay more to not be in that diversity and have our kids grow up in that, which has been a blessing. Now, a lot of things here have changed. A lot of things in the world have changed. I don't
Sure.
know if I would make the same decision today, and it has nothing to do with the cultural aspect,
Right.
but more just the city and the way things have run, and just certain things that have changed in the schools and whatever.
Sure.
But we're here, and that's where we got our kids through and everything. But my point is like that diversity. I mean, when I think about it, it gave me my love for that music, because it would have been one thing like if I heard that that Run DMC track, or going back to Rappers
Right.
Delight that we talked about.
Yep.
If I heard that and then went back to my my little homogeneous world where none of that existed, that
Right.
might have been my one and only exposure, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
this is before hip hop was like in TV commercials or
Yeah.
in the mainstream. It wasn't, but it was in my mainstream because I was in Neuro,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So it was like that wasn't like a one-off experience to hear Rappers Delight at the rink, or to hear Rockbox wherever I heard it. I was then looking for it and hearing those things and seeing those things every day. Seeing not only did I see Shell Top Adidas in a Run DMC video, it's fucking kids wearing it in school, those same
Yeah.
shits, right?
Yeah.
So like it became like you fell in love with the whole aspect of the
The whole
culture and
culture.
diversity, and
100%.
yeah,
Like it's funny. I totally forgot about this as well. But as we were, getting closer to our conversation today, I remembered I even dabbled in graffiti and dabbled in breakdancing, which I was
right.
god awful in both. Like terrible.
Yeah,
Like
I'm sure
tag.
you held your own.
Oh no, it was terrible. Like terrible. Like my tagline, my tag name in graffiti was Tiz, Tiz, and it was awful, like terrible. And on the whole like breakdancing front, I remember like the whole thing was you needed like cardboard. You needed to find some cardboard. So if
Right,
you knew someone like a neighbor that was buying a stove
right,
or fridge, like don't throw that fucking cardboard away.
right,
That's mine. Because I'm gonna do
right,
some
right.
head spins on that motherfucker, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and
I
I
know a
was,
lot of people, a lot of kids were doing that. I never attempted
yeah,
that or
and I never
spamming
should have.
really.
I never
Right.
should have. Full disclosure, it
No,
was bad.
you should have, because that's how like you don't know if you don't know. It's the same thing with what we teach our kids, to try things and do everything.
Right.
Like, that was encouraged here, really, I mean,
Yep.
listen, even I know we're jumping, like even like my parents, right? Like here we are, like I grew up in a traditional, Jewish household in the north end of Rochelle. We weren't like super religious, but like I was bar mitzvahed, my brother was bar mitzvahed. Here I am. My father put me through college, Temple
Mm-hmm.
University, paid for college. I get out of college and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be a rapper, you know.
Right.
And there was no like, what the fuck are you talking about? It was
Right.
like I was encouraged, like,
Yeah.
hey, go
Yeah.
for it. If that's
How
where your
huge is
heart is,
that, right?
go. It's so huge. And I honestly sometimes wonder if I, even with my kids who are at that age now, like one just graduated school, one
Would
is
you
in the
be as
middle of
cool
school,
as your parents?
I really wonder.
Yeah.
Like would I be like, you know, that accepting of them not going like the traditional route?
Right.
I would like to think I would, and we'll see. I mean, like I said, I think I told you before we, clicked record on this, like my one son is graduated, working his first job and trying to figure out what he's going to do. My other
Yep.
guy's still in school, and he's a lot more of a wild spirit. He could come to me in 2 years and maybe want to do something that's not the traditional path. How would I support that? But I did have that support. There was not pressure like,
Yeah.
this is not what we paid for school for. What is this rap thing? Pull your pants up. They're too baggy.
Right.
Go get it.
Right.
They were kind of like, I'm sure, like, what the fuck
Yeah.
is this?
Yeah.
But but I think part of that was knowing like that they also raised their family in Rochelle, and we were
Right.
in schools with a variety of cultures and races
Right.
and religions and upbringings and
Yeah.
financial backgrounds and all of that.
And you
So
touched on it earlier too. Maybe your parents had the foresight to think about, hey, look, if this is something that he really wants, that regardless of the outcome, the lessons learned are going to translate in his life,
I
right?
think they had that. I do. I think to your point, that's exactly right. And listen, I'm sure there were some moments when I was like getting home at 3 in the morning from a studio session, which they could not relate to, out in Long Island, and then staying in bed till noon. And my job was like, I think I had a part-time job for Gannett newspapers,
Hmm.
not delivering papers. I was, a little more advanced than that, but like getting on like telemarketing and calling people to subscribe to the journal,
Right.
whatever it was, the Journal News or Standard Star, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm sure they had their moments of being like, like how long? But they stayed
Right.
patient with it because they did see that I had a work ethic towards this dream that I had.
Yeah. Yeah.
They might have known like it's not realistic, but they never made me feel that way, and I'm grateful for that because I have applied all that to the rest of my life. But I do wonder if it'd be that cool if one of my kids was like, yeah, all that money you spent on college, thank you. I'm gonna go try and be a rapper. I might be like, I don't know, man. I tried that shit. You're probably not good enough, just like I wasn't. So
It's like, let me hear some rhymes first, and let me be the
yeah.
judge of that. Yeah, exactly.
Ironically, my boys, they did, like you said, how easier it became for these kids. So in high school, these kids, and I'm not going that far back. I mean,
Right.
my oldest, like I told you, he's 22, soon to be 23, and my youngest is 20. Not
Hmm.
he's not my youngest son. And in high school, them and all their friends, they made all these songs together. They get these
Oh.
beats off of YouTube,
Oh.
and they
Right.
make songs and they rap,
Yeah.
and most of them are horrible. But my
Yeah.
two sons made together a song called Gucci Slides that
Okay.
like they
Oh.
put it on SoundCloud, and I forgot like the listens they got, but it was like in the tens of thousands. Like people were
Jeez.
kind of into it, and I was
Yeah.
like, and
Oh.
my older guy sucked, but my middle guy had a little something. I was like, you
Had a
got a
little.
little flow there, you got a little. But he let it go too, which I'm okay.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember my son, who's now 24, he expressed like a smidgen of interest, and I went all in, like, like way overboard. I started buying like all this shit, like all this recording, because I couldn't afford it back in the day. I could afford a
Right.
little, got a little coin now. I could afford some things, so I started buying all these machines and friggin' all like I built a studio essentially, and he was like, "I'm really not that interested. I just,
That's funny.
it's a
So it's like if he said, "Dad, I want to be a pro baseball player," you would have went out and got him
batting
the best
cage."
bat,
Oh yeah,
batting
yeah,
cage,
yeah.
which I did
Right.
all of that with my kids. But
Reach out to Nolan Ryan. Hey, what are you doing next Sunday?
right,
Like throw
right,
some
right.
balls.
But when he touched your chord on maybe I want to be a rapper, it like got you like,
Oh,
yeah,
100%. It was
yeah,
like it tapped into that, oh, what could have been
right,
gene, right?
right,
Like,
right. That's
oh, if
great.
I had some funding, I got your back, and whatever.
That's
But
great. That's great,
yeah.
man.
So shifting gears a little bit, right? So obviously you out of all of us, right? DPC had three in your crew, right? You got Glenn, you had Chris, and in our crew, you dogs, we had me and my boy Rich. And you're the only one out of the crew who actually made music your career. So
Yeah,
and I don't even remember. I remember you quickly, like almost while you were going for it, you got into
right.
the business.
It is. Yeah.
How did you get into the business? And like,
Hmm.
tell me about that transition.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting story. So ironically, like my bug for the business side started before I started rapping. So like when me and Chris were in college, we were roommates in school, and I
What was
love,
your major? Do you remember?
political science. I was going to
Okay.
go to law school,
Okay.
because that's what my parents thought would be a good path. You got the gift of gab, you'll be a good lawyer, you'll be great in the courtroom. Okay, I'll go to fucking law school and be a lawyer. Like I
Yeah.
had no idea,
Yeah.
but
And
I
Temple's
was
got a
really,
great program, right?
well. They have a great law school if you can get into it. I certainly could not have and did not get into any law schools when that time came, actually. My nephew actually just graduated Temple Law, ironically. So it was weird. Like, Chris and I would always go to this record store, Sound of Market Street, which was a famous record store, vinyl
Okay.
shop. We would go, like, I think back then everything came out on Tuesdays. Now it's Fridays, and we would go like on Tuesdays. And I was really into I was into the rap. I was also really into R&B. I loved, and to this day, they're my favorite group of all time, New Edition. And
Oh yeah.
I would I heard there's a remix of If It Isn't Love, and the guy would be like, oh yeah, I just got the white label in, and
Great
like I love.
documentary a few years ago too, right? Did you see that?
Oh, the movie, the New Edition story
Oh,
on BET. It was
fantastic.
amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. So I would hang out in the store, and I would watch what people were looking at and how they would respond to things. And a record store was a true record store back then. So there was an in-house DJ basically who would put things on and play it for people and see how they responded. And so I really would hang out in there once a week. So I really liked that aspect of it. And then I started buying the charts enthralled me. I started buying Billboard magazine. So here I am, an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid. I'm not working in the music. It's a trade magazine. Nobody buys Billboard because you like music.
Right. Yeah.
And I just it became a Bible to me every week. I would go, whatever it cost back then. It was expensive for whatever it was as a magazine. And I would love looking at the charts and looking to see groups I liked. Are they on the chart? Did they chart? There's Tim, I mean, you're going back. There's no internet. There's no, none of these things how we live our lives today. A magazine would tell you, right? So
Right.
So this is before DPC, before trying to be a rapper. I
Okay.
really liked the business. I was just reading
Sure.
Billboard. I didn't know what I was reading or understand, but I would read about retail and CDs and pricing and policies, MAP policy, which was minimum advertised pricing. And, I picked up what I picked up, but I was like a sponge for it. I really was.
Sure.
So fast forward, it's DPC, and now I'm totally focused on being a rap star. That's it. All of that business stuff. I'm like, no, I'm going to be a rap star. There was a label called Strictly Rhythm Records, and they were a dance music label, club music, house music. Pretty much the biggest independent. They became the biggest independent house music label in the world.
And by the way, for anyone who's listening to this, during the early 90s, house music had to be its peak. I mean,
oh yeah,
phenomenal. If you walked into a club in New York City and house music was playing, you could feel that in your bones. It was something special.
It was. Now, it wasn't my scene. I wasn't walking into those clubs, but I understand the history, especially now. And it was. It's it's what the world calls EDM now, electronic dance music, and has been called that for a long time now. But then it was house music.
Yeah. Nor was it my scene, but when I went to the tunnel on a few nights, where it was prevalent, dude, it was special.
It was
special.
People would losing their minds, and you were like, even being, and I was at some of those places. You're like, especially which I'll get to. When I ended up working for them, I'd have to go for business, and I'd be like, I hate this music, but this scene is insane, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, the owner of Strictly Rhythm had started a rap label called Fat Wax, and he happened to live and was on the board of directors of a building, a co-op building, a big building in Manhattan that my father, who was a real estate manager at the time, he managed the building. My father's company managed the building.
Okay.
So my father said, there's this guy, Mark Finkelstein. He's on the board of directors in this building that my company manages, and he owns this record label, apparently, and, he's a nice, Jewish guy like me, and he'll have a conversation with you. And he had started this rap label, and he took a liking to me. And then, he had started this Fat Wax Records. And long story short, the A&R, who was his A&R for the house music, she was the one who started the rap label. She liked us, and she offered us a deal. Now, you got to understand, this is a one single deal. I think our advance was $1,000. So we each would have, got $333. Um,
You're talking about
and
all for DPC.
all for DPC. This is when we're
Okay.
trying to be, yeah. So he was
Okay.
taking the meeting with me because not
Sweet.
because I wanted a job, because I was trying to be a rapper.
Right. Gotcha.
So they offered us this deal. Now, at the same time, we were led to believe by one of the managers, not the last one who was kind of with Hit Squad, but the one in between. Oh, the Shang Records guy, who that label is under Epic, actually. No, Epic is going to sign you. You're not going to sign that little bullshit Fat Wax deal. We're going to sign you at Epic Records. So we like, turned it down. I'm fucking signing with this Fat Wax. Thanks, Dad, for the hookup, but not signing with this Fat Wax. So less than a year later, like the whole Epic dream had gone away. Nobody's returning our calls or whatever. Now I'm like, I don't know, 26. Now I'm out of college 3-4 years. I'm
Mike
even
is
having this. Yeah, I'm even
Mike's
having
hung
the
up.
sense. Yeah, like I didn't hang it up, but I'm even having the sense that like, I got to get my life going. Like at this time, I'm dating, Robin, who's, my wife of 20, almost 26 years. For a few years, I'm starting to think like, hey, we might actually like get engaged. Like I got to make like actual money, buy a ring, that kind of thing.
Kind of put your adult pants on, basically, right?
Yeah, I was like, I kind of got that bug a little bit. Like, I'm not going to give this up, but I got to get something else going on, as opposed to like working for the newspaper company, telemarketing 4 hours a day and laying in bed the other half of the day playing Sega.
Which, by the way, probably was a fantastic experience. Another hustle type job, right?
Another hustle. Yeah, another hustle. I didn't, I had to do something. My parents were like, you can pursue your rap thing, but you can't only do that. You got to make your own money. You're living home. Like, you got to make a few $100 a week, whatever.
Yeah.
So after the Epic thing had gone away, I knew that the guy who owned this label, this Strictly Rhythm, that he had taken a liking to me, and I wanted to get in the business. Mm-hmm. And I reached back out to him, and I told him, look, I know we turned down this rap deal, and I don't know that we're ever really going to be rappers, but I really want to get into the business. And he liked me. He offered me a job in his mailroom, Strictly Rhythm Records, for I remember $400 a week, which I thought was great. I was like, this is 1996, I want to say.
Okay.
And is that right? No, I'm sorry. It was 94.
Okay.
And, I was like, okay, mailroom, great, So I started in the mailroom of Strictly Rhythm Records. Again,
they're Manhattan, I assume?
They were in Manhattan on 51st or something, Midtown, near like Times Square-ish. And I'm in the mailroom, dude. I'm like literally boxing up vinyl records, just handing the mail out, going to the fax machine, an hour a day when the receptionist, would go to lunch. I had to answer the phones. And like, I was, again, a sponge. Like I would like that hour I answered the phones, I would notice like when this guy calls, the owner says, send him to voicemail. When this guy calls, he jumps on the phone. When he comes out and tells me, did anything come through the fax? Like I know. And I'm like, no. And he's like, okay, look for something. Like I got to look for that. That's an important paper. And then I would read it. Like what is this? It's a publishing deal in the UK for 20. I'd see numbers that to me were like, boom, like $15,000. I'd be like, 15,000. Like what are these people doing? Like So, but I had a I had a bug for it. I really did, and the company started doing really, really well because they were big in house music, but it was underground, 12-inch vinyl. Like, they would put things out on CD, but they would sell, ship a couple of thousand CDs, very small, but it was a small company. I don't know how many people worked there, 10, 12 people. But it was a very respected house music label. Then they had a big hit, which to this day, everybody does. It's I like to move it.
No way. That was them?
That was them, Real to Real.
Ooh, that is still hot.
Yeah. Well, that song is licensed on a million commercials, and
whoever,
whoever's involved with a piece of that, the writers, the publishers. Eric Murillo was his song. May he rest in peace. He died a few years ago. So it blew up. So the company got bigger, and he said, I have an opportunity to move you up into the sales department. And I was just like, great. Like it wouldn't have mattered what he said. If he said, radio promotion, marketing,
right,
PR, whatever it was, but it was sales.
Yeah.
So I was like, of course. And sales at that point, we're still a 12-inch vinyl label. So I'm
Yeah.
calling independent stores. Now we put out records every Friday, between 2 and 5 12-inch vinyl records every Friday from different producers, artists. A lot of it is so instrumental. They just, bang them out, bang them out, bang them out.
Yep.
And I'm calling every, Friday, calling these stores. And then also part of my job when I was in the mailroom, and it stayed part of my job when I went to sales, was every Friday, me and one other guy in the mailroom, we'd have to get in a van and go deliver the records out for cash to like the
That's
5 or 6 hot record stores all around Manhattan. That's
what
what
an
we did.
amazing, what an
Yeah.
amazing experience.
I didn't realize it at the time. I was
No.
just like, what a grind. But looking back, like it really put me in
Yeah.
the early stages of the business and seeing, and that was like, we called it Mark's play money, because you'd come back Friday, at 4 or 5 o'clock from the 5 deliveries of the orders you took that week for those 5 stores, and give him, whatever it was, $4,000. That, was cash, and nobody knew anything about it, and whatever he did with it, he did, on top of his, not that it wasn't legitimate, but you know what I'm saying. So the company was doing well. I was in sales, and I got another opportunity through a company called Koch Distribution. We had a meeting with Koch Distribution at
What
Strictly
year is this
Rhythm,
about?
97.
Okay.
And we at Strictly Rhythm had a meeting with Koch, which was more of a national distributor than we had as a label. And we never signed a deal with them, but I saw that the owner, Michael Koch, like took a liking to me in the meeting, because now I'm not in the mailroom anymore. I'm in the sales department.
Right.
And
Yep.
I'm not trying to be an expert, but I'm going to talk and say what I know, or ask the right
Right.
questions or
And
whatever.
he's prospecting as well, right? He's
I guess.
analyzing. Yeah, talent,
I
whatever. Yeah.
guess. So somehow, whether he came to me or I came to him, I wanted to grow and get out of there. I didn't want to be at this house music label. And he came to me, or I came to him, however it was, and I, told him I want to grow at this point. Now I'm engaged to be married. It's like 97. Whatever I was making at the time, I think I was getting paid $40,000 a year at Strictly Rhythm. Like, I'm like, okay, I need to take my next step up. And he hooked me up with this guy named Jonathan First, who was the president of a company named Edel Records. Edel America
Okay.
was the U.S. Startup company of a big German independent called Edel Records. And they were going to be a pop label. Like, this is the time of Backstreet Boys and
Yeah.
NSYNC and Britney Spears.
Right.
Right.
All the boy girl bands, all that stuff.
All of
Yep.
that. So
Yep.
Edel had a lot of that stuff overseas, and they wanted to get a part of it for the U.S.
In the US. Yep.
Yeah. So this label was kind of started to be a pop label, boy band, girl band, all that kind of stuff. And this guy, Michael Koch, got me an interview. He distributed this company, Edel, got me an interview with Jonathan First. Jonathan offered me a job for $55,000, which was like a huge fucking jump.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't believe I remember these numbers. I haven't thought
Yeah.
about these numbers in a really long time, but I guess my memories are right, because I remember them. And I left, and Strictly Rhythm, the owner, was really pissed about it.
Oh, really?
I never was able to fix
That's
the
the tough
relationship.
part, right? Because
Yeah,
you're appreciative of the opportunity, but
of course I was. And
they
he
got to
always used to
understand.
say, well, he didn't though. He always used to say, nobody ever quits Strictly Rhythm. You leave here because you get fired, you're not good enough. Nobody leaves this company. And I left. And I don't know if it was a shot to his ego, but he never
It's a little
forgave
arrogant,
me.
a little arrogant.
Yeah,
You
it
know.
was disappointing, because it was a real important relationship to me. My father had hooked me up. He had
Right.
offered me a record deal, had offered me a job, and I wanted him to be happy for me that I had a growth opportunity. But he was like, well, I had plans for you too. And I was just like, but I want to be in a different kind. I wanted to be in like that pop world. Like, I was intrigued with that whole boy, boy
Sure.
band thing and
Yeah.
everything. I loved it. Like, I loved New Edition and all that. I'm like, like, I
Sure.
want to be part of that. Like,
Yeah.
so I went there from 97 until 2001. And excuse me, this is important. I got to light my cigar.
Oh, you have to. Yeah. I wish I could smoke a cigar. I just can't do it for whatever reasons. I can't do it.
Yeah, I should do less of it, but that's another topic. But my guilty pleasure, along with little tequila. So I was at Edel, and things got very political there. The company was sold to Sony Music. Um, they had brought in their own people. They like my days were numbered there. Um, and I knew that, but I had an employment contract. Now at this point, I'm making more than the 55 that I had started at. You know,
How
I'm
long
not
were you there
a
for?
ton of money. I ended up there about 3.5 years,
Okay.
and I rose up pretty quickly. I ended up getting promoted to vice president. My
Good.
salary went up, um, but it was a bad situation. I was going to work every day with a pit in my stomach. There were like these Sony
Uh,
people in our meetings now. It became like it was this small team of me, Jonathan, and our publicist Katie, and our A&R guy John, and we were like the fearsome foursome. We traveled together, this and that, and all of a sudden we were like being overwhelmed by Sony music and all these meetings and
right.
reports and numbers, and I was getting beat up in meetings, and
Yeah.
we overshipped this, back when CDs, and we didn't ship enough of
Yeah.
this, and
Right.
I was like, and they really didn't like Jonathan. He was my boss, but he was
Yeah.
kind of ironclad, and I was his number two, and they were really going after me. It's like
Oh
if you
wow.
want to, it's like if you want to get rid of the baseball manager and you start,
Right.
firing the
Yeah.
third base
Right.
coach. Like,
Yep.
so I was like the, the scapegoat, and I knew I was going to be. And so again, I went back to this guy, Michael Koch. Now we were also, still distributed by Koch. And I said, I gotta get out of here. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting in the weeds. We weren't distributed by Koch anymore, but there was still a connection. Anyway, I said, listen, you got me here. Now you need to help get me out of here. I said, it's bad. Sony's in here every day and I'm getting my ass kicked, and I'm fucking, I can't eat, I can't sleep. My wife was pregnant with our first. Um, this is about 2000, 2001. And he's like, okay, there's this company, Shawnee Records. They really have a great company. They do all this, reggae and jazz and blues. They have this big catalog of music, but they're really poorly managed on the sales side, because sales was the thing then. You're selling into
Sure.
Sam Goody and Musicland and Walmart and Record Town, etc. Um, and I knew the label because we had the same distributor. We would get every month a new release book of everybody's new releases. So I would see all the labels distributed by Koch, and would see all the different labels, what they're releasing, and I would see the Shawnee stuff. And I remember hating the way their one sheets looked. Like, one sheet is like the sheet that announces a new release. I'm like, oh my god, the colors are bad and the wording is bad. I was like, so when he mentioned Shawnee to me, I was just like, like I don't want to go. And the music, like I'm this, pop rap guy. I like R&B, pop music, and hip hop. And I'm like,
Right.
they're doing smooth jazz and blues, and I'm like, oh god. But like I knew I needed a job,
Right.
so I went, and he hooked me up with this guy, Randall Grass, who's the general manager of the company then and to this day. And I interviewed with them, and they offered me the job. And I remember at the time telling my attorney, because I wanted an employment contract, which was back then, it was like a big deal to have a contract, right?
Yeah.
So you have some protection. And Shawnee wasn't like giving out contracts, but if I was going to come over there, I was going to get one. And I was like, like 1 year. Like there's no way I'm staying longer than a year, maybe two, but get a 1 year contract, make it, ironclad, but like 1 year at my salary, which was a little bit of a raise over what I was making at Edel. And I went there, and there's a lot in between, but I'm now there almost 24 years.
No way.
Same company. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Like, how
Yeah.
rare is that? You're like gold
It's,
watch status at this
it's,
point.
it's very rare. Yeah. It's very rare. It's crazy how it happened, man. It goes back to that expression, man plans and God laughs. So,
Yeah.
I had my eyes on 1 year, and now it's been the biggest blessing I could ever have,
Wow.
of my career and of my life. It's given me so much. So,
Yeah, that's amazing. So
yeah.
so so where's the company? Are they New York City as well? Then
No. So when I took the job, we were in New York City, down at Canal Street. I had this great office they gave me, the corner of Canal and the Holland Tunnel. And I'm like seeing all the hustle and bustle, and we're there. I started in March of 2001.
okay,
Now, the company had two offices. They had this office in the city, and they had an office in Sussex County, New Jersey, out near where one of the owners lived. And the
okay,
owner So there was two silent owners and one very active owner was the president and still is to this day. And he lived out there. So he had an office there for like all the back office stuff, accounting and shipping and whatever. And then like the record company side was in New York City, you know, marketing, sales, promotion, PR,
Sure.
A&R. So I'm there about like 3 months and they come to me and be like, hey, look, we're really thinking of consolidating, moving everything out to Sussex County, New Jersey.
Okay.
I'm like, really? Like, there the fuck goes my New York City lifestyle record exec shit. Like,
right. Yeah.
I'm like, you know, I have this corner office in, you know, in downtown Manhattan. I go after game and meet my friends for drinks, go to Yankee games, you know.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, and I don't know anything about Sussex County, New Jersey, but I know I need this job, right? Like, so what am I going to say? So I'm like, well, I have one car, me and my wife, and she's pregnant. She needs the car. Like, she worked in Pelham at the time. We lived in Larchmont. And they're like, all right, we'll get you a car. Is that like your biggest thing? I'm like, okay. So they moved the company out in August of 01. And would you know, 9/11 happened like 2.5 weeks after we moved, and we were right on the line down at, you know, Canal by the Holland Tunnel of where like you were cut off right beneath there, like you were not going into that city for like months and months. And that became another blessing, because honestly, like a lot of people, I was completely shook. I didn't want to be in Manhattan. Like, I didn't want to, you know, I wanted to fucking just be home. And driving the other way to New Jersey, way out in New Jersey, became a crazy blessing in a lot of ways too.
Right. Do you work from home now?
Like, yeah. So
now is that a COVID thing, or is that like
no? COVID kicked it to the next level where now I go into the office like once every 2 weeks, and I go just because I'm like, I gotta get out of this fucking house, not because anybody's saying, hey, get in here.
You need to get out.
Even before then, I was like 3 days a week at home for a bunch of years. So in the beginning, I was driving. Now this is an hour and 40 minutes away. I was going back and forth every day. Very quickly, I said,
hour 40 each way.
Yeah. Now, mind you, my son is born at the end of July. We move out to New Jersey 3 weeks later. 3 weeks later, 9/11 happens. And now I'm driving 5 days a week, 90 miles each way. Jeez. And I remember going to them pretty quickly after we moved out there and saying, hey, you guys are great. I mean, you gave me this job. You gave me a car. I get it. It's too much. I got a newborn who's, you know, got me up half a night. I can't do this 5 days a week. So I started working from home on Fridays initially. Yeah. And then just as time went on, like, you know, back then you needed
technology got better.
Everything. Like back then we barely had email. You know what I mean? Like, so, but there were certain things like, I can't do this from here. I got to be in the office. Like, you know, and that slowly over time. So by the time we got to COVID, I was probably going in once a week by the time COVID happened. You know, certain weeks, maybe twice. Sometimes I would stay out there. Like if the weather was crappy, I'd get a room and stay out near there. But I was like, I was, you know, I beat COVID to the work from home thing by a long shot.
Yeah, me too. I'm like 23 years of working
really?
From the home office.
So you're, I'm like started about 23 years ago, but transitioned into, so I need a pause for 2 reasons. I need to, you know, biology's talking to me.
Yeah, do your thing.
I need to throw on my sweatshirt. It got a little chilly here in New York all of a sudden. All right, so I put a sweatshirt on and you took yours off.
I did, but check this out.
Oh shit! Get the fuck out of here! I want one of those,
dude. You're gonna have to get one of those for being on the podcast. You know what I'm saying? You know.
When did you do that?
So this is my wife's doing. Like she heard about this. Like this is like maybe a 5-6-year-old shirt. She was like, oh, there's something on YouTube. Which by the way, did you post this on YouTube?
I think Rich might have done that. I posted some Davenport shit on YouTube.
Yeah, no, this is our little photo shoot. Do you remember that?
I remember at the Larchmont train station.
Train station, exactly. Through the tunnel and all that. So literally, there's probably like, I don't know, maybe 65 likes on that video right now.
40 of them me, 20 you.
Me, yeah, exactly. So she just surprised me one day with the shirt, and it was hilarious. I just started cracking up like crazy. So yeah, this is I was gonna start the pod with this, but I was like, I'm gonna wear it underneath my little hoodie and
You know what? It's much better to have been surprised an hour and a half in because that's awesome, man. I don't have anything like that, and I've thought about doing merch like of
oh,
of, of,
merch
the,
is
of
where
the
it's at.
Davenport shit, but just for us, obviously, ain't nobody fucking buying it. But um,
Oh yeah, I'd buy
that's
the
fucking
merch,
that's
100%.
that's fucking dope. Oh man, I want
Yeah.
I want that. But yeah, all right. Little wardrobe change, a little
Yeah.
bathroom break. I broke the seal, so who knows? There might be another one in 10 minutes. You know how it
Uh,
goes.
exactly.
I'm old, man. Like
Yeah. I mean, it's tough, man. You look good though. You look good.
you do too, man. You
You
do too.
guys,
You're holding this
you
together.
and Robin, it's funny, like not to get too personal, right? We're talking about rap and our experiences, but like I remember when you and Robin got together, like this is going back to like our days of like,
Yep.
I call them, we're still kids. We were babies,
Yeah.
like in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things. And you guys, as soon as I saw you guys together, I'm like, this is like the couple made from heaven. Like you guys were so good together. Like
Yeah.
Robin's a sweetheart. And
Thank
I
you.
didn't, obviously we didn't know each other as well, but I knew you kind of, right? Like I knew you
Right.
kind of,
Same. Same.
and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Like you guys
Yeah.
are match made in heaven,
We
and so
were.
happy
We were
that you
good from the
guys are
start. It's
hundred
not always.
percent.
Sometimes she'll tell you it's a match made in hell, but
But
it's any couple,
you
right?
need hell to like appreciate heaven,
Appreciate heaven.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, you know
But I
what? We're
remember
good. We're
back in the
good.
day, like Robin's I think a year younger. Robin and crew, Debbie and crew, I
Yeah.
think a year younger than me, right? Maybe 80
No,
or two,
no.
maybe
A few. So
a few. Okay.
I'm pretty sure she's not. I'm 87. You're 88. I'm pretty sure she's 92.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So more than because when I met her, I was 23. She was 18.
Okay.
Soon to be 19.
Right.
So I was like robbing the cradle. Like she had just finished her freshman year in college, and I had finished college a year earlier.
Right. Yeah.
And we hooked up. Chris actually was. It's a funny story. Um, my brother graduated high school with Robin and Debbie and all them, and being typical jerk that I am, I'm
Are
going
you
through his
are you the
yearbook.
oldest of your family?
My sister's the oldest. I'm
Okay.
middle, and my brother was Robin's year. And I'm going through his yearbook, and I'm picking out all the hot girls. And I get to Robin. I'm like, "Who's that?" And he's like, "Robin LeBron. She's a friend of mine. She'll never talk to you, though." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Listen, I felt like
Yeah.
challenged, a
Move
little
on. Move
bit.
on from that. Yeah. Yeah.
He was like, "That's not your. She's out of your
Yeah.
league,"
Out of your league. You're gonna be
which
punching up.
which she was. She still is. But yeah. Then Chris started dating Simone, and I was like,
I didn't know that.
"Yeah, they dated for like a year and a half or
Okay.
something." So when
Because
he
Simone
started
and
dating
Rich, I thought dated for a while, maybe,
Did
or for
they?
like, did they? I don't know. Maybe
I
not.
don't know. I don't know.
I could be wrong with that.
You
So
might you might
Simone or
you
Rich,
might be
I
right.
apologize.
It might predate my knowledge of the crew. I don't
I don't
know.
know. My memory's
But I
terrible.
remember
So
saying to Chris like, "Oh, her friend the blonde Robin, you got to hook me up. You got to hook me up." And Simone and Chris did hook us up, and we've been together, pretty much since. Really.
a quarter of
Um.
a century. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Well, including the dating, or over 30 years. Yeah. But
That's nuts.
we're good. You know what? Listen, there's no secret. We have fun together. We move on from shit quickly. We have a common, like any parents, common bond in our kids and wanting what's best for them. Mostly I'll say we have fun together. Like when you see me sitting right now, I'm at the table, but there's an area over there, like our little out there couch and TV area where it's the two of us sit with a cocktail, me with a cigar, and we catch up. We spend a lot of time just the two of us. I mean, we have friends, we go out all the time, but we have a lot of laughs, a lot of fun together, and
Hmm.
yeah. And as far as looking good, she's always been like super active and everything. So like
Yeah.
it got me like that and everything. So it's just like, we're all fighting age, right? So like
Yep.
I'm like more active than I've ever been as far as exercise and working out.
Yeah.
Everything hurts more than it ever fucking
Oh,
did.
dude. So check this out. So
Everything.
2 days ago, I walk around this lake that's by us. It's a 4 mile loop, and I don't run. I walk this damn thing.
Yeah, my running days are over. Yeah.
Yeah, and I swear to God, my left calf. is like on fire, like
from walking. I know.
for
I know.
walking. Like
I
that
know.
makes no sense. Makes no
I
sense.
know, dude. It's I like crushed a Peloton today, and honestly, like at one point in the middle of the afternoon, I was thinking of texting you, being like, "Hey, dude, maybe a reschedule." Like that was fine, but like,
Right.
yeah, I play a lot of tennis, and do the Peloton, and
Yeah.
try and walk a lot and everything. But you know what? More than physical, and this, like I know we segued here, but like mentally, and we're trying to teach our kids this, and they're all very active. My daughter with the basketball and everything, but like just being moving is just so important for your
Oh
mental.
yeah.
Like the
Oh,
mental part. Yeah, I like staying in decent shape or whatever and all that. It's great, but the mental part is the most important part for both of us. Like, you have your work, you have a million things going on, and your kids, and just and then you get anywhere from a half hour to an hour of whatever that is. And my wife plays a ton of
right.
pickleball and tennis and
There
walks
is
and
nothing better than a good workout for the mental.
100%,
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, lifting heavy weights or walking or whatever
Yep,
it is, when you do
yep,
something really difficult, it just makes the rest of
yep.
your world stresses just disappear.
It does. It does. And it might be temporary, but you need that. Like, you know what I have to say. Like, I probably started getting serious about trying to stay in decent shape sometime in like my 30s, and it was really because before then, like I didn't do anything. Like I never had to worry about weight or anything. It's just like, yeah, whatever. Then all of
Yeah.
a sudden you start to notice things like, holy shit. Like
Yeah.
I ate 2 slices of pizza last night, and all of a sudden I don't like the way I look in the mirror, right? So, we haven't given up our pleasures, but
Right.
Robin was always super active, and so
Yeah.
it made it like I have to,
Right.
like she's gonna fucking
Exactly.
leave me if I become a fat ass.
Exactly. Fat shaming is
Yeah.
not a bad thing, by the way, in my opinion. So,
Yeah, no, no, no.
so flipping back to
Yeah, yeah,
rap music for a second, who
yeah.
is on your you know, is from a rap standpoint, like you know, who's your favorite rappers all time?
It's a good question. It's it's not that tough. I was gonna say, that's like the pro tip answer. Oh, it's a tough question. It's not that tough for me.
And it's like I want yours, right? Like
Right.
not like what you think is the best rappers
No,
of all
I
time.
know, and
Rick
some of mine are gonna.
Rosenberg's.
No, I hear you. And some of
Yep.
mine are going to be like really cliched, right? Because they just are the best, right? So I definitely have like Nas there. I have Big there. I have Rakim there. I have Jay-Z there.
Yep.
Um,
Oh,
and this is not in any order. I certainly have Jadakiss there without a doubt. Um, dude, I love Sadat X. Like that's a neuro thing, but like
yeah.
to me, he's like one of the best in my world. Dude, there's this dude that nobody really knows about, and he is a pro. Like he's been on wax many times. Jojo Pellegrino, a white kid from Staten Island who's not a kid
Hmm.
anymore. He's probably in his 40s. Like I think he's so underrated or underexposed. So right there, those guys, of the newer generation is not a lot. It's just
Do you
hard. It's
listen to
just so.
new hip hop today?
um I listen to new hip hop that is now old hip hop, right? So like I did like get into Drake. Like I think he's
Okay.
dope. I think he's
Yep.
super talented.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You
I mean,
know,
he's
I
a billionaire, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's that, but there's a lot of guys like that I would never fucking listen to. Like I listen
Right.
to Drake. Um, I mean, when I say like new, like again, like they're not even new anymore. Like new stuff that comes out like now to this day, I'm exposed to very little of it. My kids play me shit most of the time, just like I can't listen to that. It's not, I sound like the old head now because that's what I
Right.
am. Like, the mumble rap and all, like I'm like, that's
Oh, that's
skill. Like
terrible.
that's talent.
Terrible.
Like I don't get it.
Right.
Um, I mean, there's once in a while. But I like new guys to come out sounding like the old guys. Like I don't know if you know, like Dave East, who's not new anymore either. Like he's been around a while. My one son Jackson put me onto the whole Grimelda crew or whatever, like Benny the
Yeah.
Butcher and all those
Okay.
guys. Like
Don't know.
you're not, yeah, they're dope. I mean, they're like, they're like our version of listening to EPMD and and Nas and Brand
Yeah.
Nubian. I mean, all different
Right.
things. But yeah, I mean, my top are really Rick Rosenberg's are kind of traditional. I mean, but then I go back like Big Daddy Kane to me will
Ooh,
always
Big
be
Daddy
one of the
Kane. So
always be
Rich,
one of the toughest
so
ever.
Rich aka Blase, we went to Harlem to see Big Daddy Kane.
Oh yeah,
Oh my God, it was the greatest show ever. But it was weird because it was like a Valentine's Day show, which is like what is
and Rich
what?
was your date.
And Rich was my date. Yeah, he was my boo, right? Like we were we were chilling in Harlem, like watching Big Daddy Kane and remember Scoop and Scrap Lover and the dancers. Yeah,
Of
yeah, yeah.
course, scoop and
And it was
scrap.
the best show ever, like the
Yeah,
greatest show ever. And he did all the classics, but he was so smooth, right? Big Daddy Kane, like
yeah.
he had his, come get some, you little bump, right?
Oh,
But then he had like
yep,
his like
yep,
smooth
yeah.
operator and
Smooth
some other
operator.
songs. Oh
Na-na-na-na-na-na-na.
my God, like you can't
Cause
get
I'm so smooth. No, I love
sound so
Kane.
smooth,
So
right?
I'd put him like, and that's the thing, like,
Like we in the outskirts of the top rappers.
yeah, you
Like
know what it
like
is? It's like,
lyrically, he was like
yeah, average.
he was
I mean,
yeah, like he wasn't Nas, right? He wasn't
right, right,
KRS One,
right.
right? But from a standpoint of like where he was in the timeline of hip hop,
Oh,
dude,
he
he
was
was
dope.
he was dope.
He was dope. I mean, I loved him. I'm trying to think back. And then in the early '90s, like I really got into like Mob Deep, like Prodigy to me
Mm.
was so fucking, I mean, when you heard Shook Ones, you felt like,
Oh,
you
shook
know, I,
ones. I
Shook
will
Ones
lift
made
the
you feel like you were like, I'll fight anybody.
I will
And
lift
I
the
and and I,
car.
I never had a fight in my life. Like
Yeah.
I got punched in my face once or twice, but I never like
I
I
will
was
throw
running
a
from
car
fights
up at somebody with
when you
Mob
hear
Deep.
Shook Ones. Yeah,
Oh
like
my God. Yeah.
so like when you say like best of all time, like there's so many different like I think about groups, I think about them, I think about Brand Nubian, I think about Tribe, Q-Tip,
Yeah.
I think about the Locks. I mean, when that was early
Yeah.
'90s, like '92, that whole Bad Boy era was crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
despite what's going on, now with
Right.
our boy
That's
Puff,
that's
like,
that's another
yeah, that's
podcast.
a whole other. I can't even. I try to explain to my sons. I'm like, you guys don't understand how fucking cool Puff was. Like,
Do you
he's not
remember?
a weirdo. You
I
wanted
don't
to
know
be
if you
Puff.
remember this,
Like,
but I remember because he's a money earning Mount
Mount
Vernon
Vernon guy, yeah,
kid,
of
right?
course.
So I remember he started as more like a promoter,
Yeah,
P Diddy, right? And he
yeah.
would have a
Howard
lot of
University. Yeah,
parties, right? Yeah, a
that
lot
was
of
his thing.
parties.
Parties. Yeah.
He had a party. I don't even remember this in Mount Vernon where like there was a fire. Do you remember that at all?
I I remember there was a stampede where people died.
Oh, maybe it was a stampede, not a
It was a
fire. See,
stampede, not a
back to the
fire. Yeah,
memory. Okay, you're right.
yeah,
And people died, right? Like
yeah,
there was a
yeah.
I think it was in Mount
Casualties.
Vernon.
Yeah, it might. I don't remember where it was. You might be right. I know it was a stampede thing, and at
Yeah,
that point he was known, but not, what he obviously not what he became, but not even the
right.
beginning of what he became.
Yep.
Um,
But his
that
whole
whole
thing,
bad boy thing, I never saw a movement like the bad boy thing. And at the time I
uh,
was working in Manhattan, like bad boy was just everywhere. Like you wanted to be down with bad boy some way, shape, or
oh right,
form.
yeah,
It was like, and then we were still like, rapping and like to get signed, like how do we get to Puff? How do we get to Puffy? Like,
right,
that was like to be on Bad Boy would have been like the greatest, like
yeah,
to have Puffies because he was like the coolest. He was,
M-
but
right.
yeah.
Or maybe, right?
Maybe, maybe he wasn't in retrospect.
Maybe it's a blessing. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, and good thing. Like I said, plans and God laughs. God's like, yeah, you're not going to
Exactly.
Bad Boy.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. For me, I feel like if I had to guess, my top rappers, I mentioned earlier, KRS One. Like
Yeah,
KRS, if you listen to his hits,
yeah.
no one's harder than KRS One. Like
No,
he
no.
came at you in a hard way. Like
Yeah,
it
and
was
and he,
amazing.
and he was saying, and he was always saying something. I mean, he was
Always,
saying something.
and I wish it was
Yeah,
more like that today.
yeah,
Like I wish it was more of he was I don't know how would you describe it, Rick? Like he was very like relevant, like
Yeah,
he was talking, he was representing the streets and their views at the time, right?
yeah, he
And
was,
just such
and
an
he was
honest,
introducing people to those issues that were going on that we wouldn't have known about otherwise.
yeah,
Like,
and
like I remember him being the first rapper that I ever listened to that talked about like police brutality. Like you didn't know, I didn't. How would we know
yeah,
about that? Being where we were from and how we grew up, like I didn't know, about that kind of thing that went
right,
on. But you knew it was real. Like you knew that he was really portraying a message that he understood, that he lived, that he's seen in his life. Um, but he was doing it in such an interesting way that like the way he rapped, he if he wasn't rapping about relevant things and current day topics, you'd be like, this dude is fucking so fly. Like even if he was just talking
oh
about his
yeah,
gold chains and his
right,
cars, like a lot of rappers did, you'd be like, this dude's fucking unbelievable. But then when he added in that consciousness to it, like I remember him being like the first conscious rapper that I was like
oh yeah,
really enthralled with, BDP. I mean, Boogie Down Productions. I mean, I'm still
oh
number
yeah.
one, just oh my god. It
Well,
was
even like the South Bronx and all that, like the battle rap that was going back and forth,
yep,
like it
yep,
was
yep,
amazing.
yep,
But like all time favorite for me is Rakim. Like
yeah,
no doubt, it's
yeah,
Rakim.
yep.
Like I remember, like even I think it was actually Rich and I were downtown Manhattan trying to shop our little demo tapes, and we actually saw not Rakim but Eric B driving around in a Saab, and we were
Yeah.
like, "Oh, there go."
Okay. Okay.
It's Eric
Yeah.
B right there.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Eric B, what's up? Like it
Yeah.
was amazing. Like,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that they didn't, from what I know today, they don't get along or there's some
Yeah.
animosity or whatever. I don't know what the story is, but
Yeah. I heard about that. Did This is gonna sound crazy? Did I imagine this? Did Eric B pass?
oh, I don't think so. But if he did, that'd be crazy.
Am I making that up in my head?
I
I
hope
might be.
not.
I don't
I,
know. The tequila might be starting to twist me a little bit. Google that. I'm not. I,
yeah.
I made I made that up. I think I made that up. I'm thinking of Mr. C. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Mr. C passed recently.
All right. Don't don't fuck with me, Chris.
could change the whole fucking podcast right now.
It's
I'm
going off
thinking
the
of,
rails in
you know
off the
what we
rail
we were
spirit.
talking about Kane. Mr. C was his DJ, and I think I
I don't know
mixed
why
the.
I can't put like Big Daddy Kane in the top. I have to almost right, but Jay Z, I'm with you. You said Jay Z earlier. Jay Z is
Listen,
like
he was undeniable as a lyricist and his delivery, his
and
flow.
longevity, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. And if Jay Z drops stuff now, which I think he rarely does, it's still fire to me, And there's some things like my kids. So like, my kids are between 18 and 22, as I said, and like they like respect how dope Nas is. They respect how
Oh
dope
yeah,
Jay is. They understand that. Like they'll listen to that stuff. I'm not saying they're going to it regularly. Like they're still into they're the guys that they grew up with and the guys that come out now. But
yep,
the longevity of those guys is just undeniable, undeniable. And Jay,
yeah.
I mean, you know, I, I mean, if you put aside, what he became as an entrepreneur and
Oh my
just a
god,
success story way beyond being a rapper is incredible. But just on being a rapper alone, he's unbelievable. And when
yeah.
you talk about top rappers of all time, but I'm going to ask you about one guy and see how you feel about him because I think I'm in the minority
Okay,
that I'm not like a big fan, and I respect his
yeah.
talent. And I'm not going to say there haven't been a lot of tracks that I haven't bopped my head to and liked. Eminem.
Ooh, the Great White Hope, basically, right?
I always thought he was a little corny. Always, even at his height.
In the beginning, I thought he was corny as shit, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
Like, the whole Slim Shady thing. And by the way, even predating Eminem, we would often get compared to Vanilla Ice. And I always found that as a great insult. I don't know how you felt about that.
Well, actually, I think I alluded to this earlier in our call that I had a theory like why it was super hard for all of us to get on trying to be rappers. And I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it was that backlash of the Vanilla Ice era or
That's why we
error.
the
You
U
know,
Dogs. By the way, we were underdogs
right,
in our
right.
opinion, right?
This and there's no doubt you were, and I think he made it harder for you guys and for us to really get on because being
Yep.
a white rapper was not taken
It was not
seriously.
cool.
It
No.
was not cool. It was not cool. Coming off the heels of that, and it was off the heels of that really when we were trying to get on.
Yep.
So the whole Ice Baby thing, and he was a joke. He wasn't respected as an artist or as a rapper or somebody. He looked and came off like a culture vulture and just
Yep.
meanwhile, and that like offended our senses because we were trying to be really authentic to it.
Yeah.
And we were not trying to like say we were
We
something we
just
were
were.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
really like, this is what we were. We were from New Row. We loved hip hop. We loved the culture. We weren't trying to say, oh,
Right.
we're not trying to say we're from the streets or
Right.
or we're African American or we have
Right.
these experiences, and we didn't really rap about those. Now there are some
No,
things
we never
looking
did.
back. I would say you guys never did, and I've heard I heard a lot of your stuff. I would say there were some tracks where if I listen to them now, I would say we should not have, you know, talked about those things. We didn't really know those things. We didn't live those things. We got caught up in moments, but in
Right.
general, we stayed authentic to like
We stayed in
rapping
the
about the
lane.
things
Yeah.
that in our lane. We knew we
Yeah.
rapped about, suburban life in the way we knew
Right.
it. So, but he made it harder for anybody who was
He
authentic and
did.
true to it to,
And I remember like back in the day, like Rich and I we would create our little demo tapes. We'd go downtown and drop our stuff off at like Def Jam or Arista or whatever. And of course we never got any calls, back. But early on, it was not like positive that we were white. We were
right,
we were kind of underdogs a little bit. That's
right,
why we were U dogs. Like
right.
now, you talk about timing earlier. Like maybe 2 3 years later, we would have been more well received, but it just
Yep,
wasn't the case.
yep.
But the funny thing is though, I remember like being Rich and I were at a studio one time, and we had a producer who was like, "Hey, this was right around the time when DMX was very popular, right?
Okay.
This goes back a long ways, right? And DMX, rest in peace, by the way. DMX is a fantastic personality and rapper.
Yep, yep.
And it was like, you guys are the U dogs. You need to start barking. Like I want you to start barking during
I
your
can
chorus.
I can see Rich especially being like, can that? I'm not doing that shit. That was Rich's his go-to. Can
That's the
that?
thing. That's the thing. I
I'm
ain't doing
not
that
doing
shit.
that.
I ain't doing that shit. And I'm like,
You're like, Rich, do it. We might get on.
we got money on the line. I'm barking like a bitch.
I'll get on all fours. That's
I'll
funny.
spray. I'll mark my territory, whatever.
I'll take a shit,
But
whatever.
whatever you need me to do, I'm down to do it, right? But
Uh,
it's crazy,
Funny shit.
man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Crazy, crazy
yeah,
stuff. But
yeah, amazing.
like you said earlier, the experiences that we had like lead us to like I don't know, the how do I say it? Like we learned, right? We learned so much from this crazy experience
Yeah.
that it translates into what we are today, you know?
100%. Yeah. And you don't even know that you're learning when you're in the middle of learning. You only really learn when you end up applying those lessons to your current existence. Um, and then you look back and you have to stop and think about it like that a lot of those lessons that you're applying came from those previous experiences in life, right? So you know, to me, the best learning, like I was never like a good student. To this day, like when I have to sit through something, like yesterday, we
Right.
were at my daughter's her college orientation, and the kids go one way, they do a thing, and then the kids go one way to go on their orientation, and the parents sit in this auditorium, and Tim, if I tell you I was fucking falling asleep, I mean, my wife is fucking elbowing me, because there's not that many people in the auditorium where I can hide. Like, and she knows if I knock off, I'm going to start snoring loudly too. But like, my point is like, and they're trying to teach us about this experience of this great college that,
Right.
my daughter's about to embark on for the next 4 years and everything. And I could give a shit less. So like to me, that has never been like my kind of learning. It's
Right.
always been through experience, trial
Right.
and error, listening, a lot of listening. Like I've been really lucky in my life, personal life, and in my professional life to have like good mentors that I go to. Like I'm involved in a whole other business outside of the music industry where I have like a great mentor through family that I've learned like just from listening and watching. Like to me, that is the true essence of learning. And that's not to in any way disparage education, because I think it's important in a lot of ways. And I think like some take to it and are able to actually apply lessons learned in a classroom to their everyday lives. That's wonderful. And I encourage my kids to do that because they're in, two are still, one's about to go to college, one's in, one's just out. And I always told them, like, even my oldest, like, don't treat college the way I did. Like my thing was like just fucking, pass so dad and mom don't kill you, and get those grades. And
Yep.
and when I say get those grades, for me it was like get a C and like graduate and all that. It was like a means to an end.
Right.
I try to encourage my kids, like, there is a lot to learn in that classroom setting, so do that. But if I had to choose between one or the two, like if I had to make a choice for each of my kids, they could either be classroom smart or
Or
life
street smart.
experience smart.
Yeah.
I would choose that street smart, life experience
Yep.
smart every day. Now, if you could have both, and I encourage my kids to
Right.
have both because you have
Yeah.
the opportunity. And there are times I'm like when I see classes my kids are in, I'm like, that's interesting subject matter. Like sit, listen, learn from that,
Right.
And I know I never did. So again, I'm not disparaging that.
Sure.
But if it was like one or the other, I would choose the way I learned over that because it really came through experience, the experience that we've been talking about this whole time of growing up here and trying to, be, in the rap game. And then it's even since then and to this day, like listening to people and other people's experiences, your own experiences, and really learning and applying that learning, to your next thing is
Yeah.
me really what's about.
I agree. So let me ask you this question, Rick. So looking back at our, you know, hopeful rap careers and however you want to like, think about it, like, do you have any regrets whatsoever?
That's a great question. Um, that's a really good question. You know, I said to you earlier in this call that like I don't think I would have been able to handle
Yep.
success. The success that I thought I wanted, I think would have really put my life on a trajectory that would not have given me the life that I have today. And I love the life that I have today. So in a lot of ways, of
Yep.
course, I do not regret that didn't, work out the traditional way I
Yeah.
thought. I do kind of regret that there wasn't maybe a small taste of that to see what it was like. Like I would have loved to have been on tour like DPC and the
Yeah.
U Dogs and Ep
Right.
Rock, who we haven't talked about
Yeah.
yet together,
Eprock. Yeah.
and like seeing what like maybe 2 years of that life would have been like, just on
Right.
the
A little
road,
taste. A
wilding
little
out,
taste. Yeah.
all the partying and the fans and the groupies and all that, a
Yeah.
little of that. Regret as far as like anyway, like I did things or we did things, decisions we made. Not really, Tim.
Yeah.
I really can't say. I
Right.
know, if I didn't work hard at trying to like get on, I would have been like, oh, I wish I applied
Right.
myself. I
Sure.
know I did work really hard at it. Like, yeah, and Chris and Glenn, if they were here, would say the same thing. Like, no, Rick was working really hard at it, like
Yeah.
labeling tapes and packages and going
Right.
to the city by myself and knocking on doors or
Yep.
like I have no regrets the effort I put into it. I think if I didn't work hard at it, I might regret and be like, oh, I wonder if I had done that, if that would have happened.
Yep.
But again, even then I say, like I've been saying, like, but then my whole life would have gone a different way if that did happen. But so no, I really can't say, Tim, that I like have any regrets, with that part of my life. And even other parts of my life, areas, like,
Yeah.
I didn't take school seriously. Did I get a degree? Yeah, I graduated Temple University with a degree in political science. I don't re- regret that I didn't work hard while I was in school and
Yep.
take education seriously. If I was doing it again at the age I'm at now, I would take it more seriously.
Yeah.
So those are not, but I don't wouldn't call those things regrets. I just think that's just life knowledge through time and
Right.
experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I'm with you. I'm with you. Like when I look back at our journey into like trying to make it in hip hop or rap or whatever you want to call it, like we tried, right? That's the real lesson, right? Like don't fuck around and like think that you're gonna like make it without trying. You need to
right,
try, right?
right,
And as long as the effort is there, then that's all that matters, right? There's no
100%.
regrets. If you gave it all your all and the outcome is whatever it is,
Yep,
then that's all you need.
100%. And I have a like a great kind of analogy, not analogy, but like life experience, like with that, and what I think I got from those, like those years of trying to be a rapper, or a signed rapper, rap star,
Yep.
definitely instilled in me a work ethic
Yep.
that have carried to this day, and helped make me successful in my own endeavors. um a while ago, I was presented an opportunity in a totally different business through family, and it was a time where I was like, I need to be doing something else. I need to diversify. Music industry was changing so much. Am I even going to have a seat, at this
Yeah.
thing? I didn't know. And I went to a family member through marriage, Robin's side of the family, who was successful in a totally different business. And we always, got along, and we had same, business senses when we would be together, family gatherings. And, he came and presented an opportunity to do something together in his business, not in my business, not in the music industry, in his business, which is a totally different business. And I took the shot. And there were many years of working really hard with no return, like none.
Yep.
And we were dealing with an overseas company. So I'd be on sometimes conference calls, at 11 at night, or, 5 a.m. because, it was their working hours or whatever, and doing this for years with no revenues, no money coming in, no financial success. And it was frustrating times where I'd be like, what am I doing? Like, this is not what I do. I'm in the music business. I'm good at it. I run business development and marketing for a good record label. I have a good job. I would like more money. I don't necessarily need more, but whatever.
Yep.
But I stayed with it. I stayed with it. I stayed with it. And we've had a really big breakthrough over the last handful of years where we're doing really well in that business. And I know that a lot of that, that work ethic to stay with
Yeah.
something that is not necessarily going your way,
Right.
and might never go your way, but just stay with it, stay with
Yep.
it. Now there is a time where it's time to cut bait.
Sure.
You
Cut
feel
bait.
like
Yep.
this is not going to happen or whatever, but there was something always there, and my partner, um in those moments would say, and it was his business, so he understood the business. He said, no, this is going to happen, stay with it, let's stay with it. So it wasn't by myself. Like, he sometimes was dragging me along when I was having those moments of like, what are we doing? Like, this is,
Yeah.
2 years, 3 years, four
Right.
years. Like, we're traveling on our own dime for this sometimes. Like, not only not making money, it's costing us money. Like,
Yeah.
and but even with his encouragement, I easily, without that work ethic, could have walked away, and nobody would have blamed me. It would have been like, you're working for free for nothing. But I
Yep.
stayed with it, and there's been a payoff. So, and I think a lot of that came from that period, those handful of years when I was trying to do this rap thing, which never worked out the way I thought I wanted it to work out, but ultimately did work out. So
Yeah.
yeah, no regrets, no, not really, dude. Can't, I really
I'm
can't.
with you. I'm with you. So here's my last question, perhaps.
Okay,
Right. So
the grand
maybe
finale.
maybe two-part question. A, what do you think about hip hop or rap music today? And B, here's my it's a more a proposal. I say there's one more upper echelon.
All right.
I got
So,
some shit to say, so I feel like we should throw some studio time in
all right.
somewhere and
All
throw
right.
a last hurrah. So,
All right. I'll answer A first and then B. So A.
and by the way, cheers, my brother.
Cheers. 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 So, what do I think of hip hop and rap today? So, from a personal standpoint, like we talked about, there's very few things that I can relate to. Now, maybe there's more out there that I
Right.
just am not
That's not
allowing
hitting
myself
our
to be
ears.
exposed to. I'm
Yeah.
just not allowing it to, right?
Right.
Like if I wanted to dive in on Sirius XM to,
Or
Shade
mainstream media is
45
not
or
giving you, right? Like,
whatever.
yeah,
It's not reaching me.
it's not
I'm
reaching you.
not looking for it and it's not reaching me. So it'd be very judgmental of me to say there's nothing out
Yep.
there that
Agreed.
personally touches me.
Yep.
Now the stuff that does personally get in my ears, however it is, my boys play it for me. I do hear it. I throw on, which I do once in a while, like throw on like a Sirius XM current day, Shade 45 or
Yep.
whatever. Most of the time I can't last 4 minutes with it. Like I'm going back to Rock the Bells radio and,
Yeah.
whatever. So, but what I will say about that is this, okay? And I argue with this about my boss at my record label that I've been at a long time, and he's old. Like you know, he's old. Like I'm 55 and I feel like that's fucking old. Like he's much, much older.
Yeah.
Like he's one of these people who will say all current music sucks. And I
Yeah.
argue with him and say that's a generational
Right.
statement
Because we
because
remember our parents saying the same thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So, my kids will listen to most of the stuff I put on, and they do respect, like I said, the
Yeah.
Nas and the,
Sure.
Biggie or whatever. But for the most part, if I throw something on that I think is dope, they'll be like, this is whack, right?
Yeah.
So, and vice versa, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
there is a very big part of it that's generational.
Yeah.
So they're growing up thinking that, A Boogie with the hoodie and
Yeah.
Travis Scott and this one,
Right.
they're all so fucking fire. And that is a generational thing. They're supposed to think shit is dope and think my shit's whack and vice versa.
Yeah.
So I respect that these artists of today that are, streaming, tens and tens of millions and have fan bases packing arenas for them, that they are artists and they are really good artists for their generation and they are respected and they just don't hit my generation.
Right.
Right. So would I compare musically their shit to our shit? Fuck no. I don't even think it touches it
Nope.
lyrically, flow wise, cadence, style. I think they all try and sound the same. I don't get
Yeah.
it on almost any level, but I also get that I'm an old head and I'm not supposed to get it.
Right.
So,
It's kind of like that tough, like balance, right? Like
yep,
I
yep,
I'm gonna just go out on a limb and say you're right in the first instinct. That
yep,
shit is fucking whacked. Like,
yeah,
like it's terrible. It's terrible.
exactly,
I want a real lyricist to come out and like tell me something that's going
exactly,
on in your life, right? In your
exactly.
streets, in your hood, in your community. Like tell me what's going on.
Say something.
Like
I mean,
everything sounds so
everything's and even lyrically, I mean, everything is, it's sexual, it's pill popping, it's this, and there was always elements of those things in our hip hop, but it's just so it lacks substance to me. Now, I will
yeah.
say, I think when our kids, and I know you have two older and two younger, so
Yep.
you might be dealing with two different,
Yeah.
generational changes. But like I know, like when I say my sons, my daughter's actually really into music too. But when my kids are parents themselves at this age, and they're going back and listening to what will be old school, then they're going to look at what their kids are listening to and saying that shit is whack, and that's kind of the way it's supposed to be,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's like it's great if
Same
you
with
can
our
touch on
yep.
all levels to
Right.
some degree, but it'd be very odd if I was like, oh Tim, I'm really into I can't
Right.
even name the names, but if I was really
Right.
into all that what's hot now, that would be odd.
Yeah.
That'd be the
It'd
exception,
be
not the
weird.
rule.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's
Which
kind of
gives me
supposed
more
to be
respect for like my former generation. Like I get it.
right.
Like I love
Right.
the Bee Gees now. Like I love
Right. That's what happens. I find
Right?
myself liking stuff now. Rap kind of started with so there's not like a lot of
Right.
rap we didn't know about. But dude, I'm listening to like yacht rock radio a lot.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I love
Don't
Christopher
sleep
Cross.
on the yacht rock.
Like
You
I
know what
love
I mean?
the Bee Gees. I
Right.
love ABBA. Like
Like the
so
so so the last hockey tournament I was on, maybe the last two hockey tournaments I was on, these guys are tough guys, right? Hockey
right,
guys.
right.
And I'm playing Christopher Cross at the end of the tournament. Like sailing. I'm playing sailing,
Sailing. Listen, the
which
best
is
song of all
I
time, man.
by the way, I question anyone to listen to sailing and not cry. Yeah,
And not
like
and not feel
and
like you
not
want to
feel
be on a
something,
sailboat out in the middle of
right?
the water
I
somewhere.
want to
Yeah.
sail. I want to sail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
So
like it's a classic song.
that's it. So I think it's easier to go how would I say, like not backwards, but like kind of go to the generation before
Yeah.
you and appreciate it than it is to go to the one that comes after you. And that's kind of the way it should be. So
It
the
should be.
short answer is no. I don't think their rap compares to ours, but I think that's kind of the way it's supposed to be. And I
Right.
think that's the way it'll be for them as well. Now, as
Yeah.
far as getting back in the studio with DPCU dogs combined as upper
I'm
echelon.
down, brother.
So
I'm down.
I would do it, right? Glenn, I know would do it. Like Glenn
Oh,
fucking
we got
so
a little coin now. We can do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's the studio time.
Glenn actually, Glenn's an interesting cat. So when we were doing it, like I would, Glenn and I would knock heads because I'd be like, dude, we're in the studio tomorrow. Have you written yet? Have you written? Have you written? Like he would ignore my calls. I'd be
Yeah.
beeping him. He'd not getting
Yeah.
back to me,
Yeah.
But Glenn has come to really love, like he's kept the DPC light alive even more than I
Okay.
have. Like he's the one who
I
made
love
me
that.
like
I
put shit on
love that.
YouTube. I gave him all of our DATs and he converted it into digital. Like, so I know.
And by the way, Glenn, if you listen to this, I love the Doobie family. Like I love
Oh,
Scott and I are like brothers from another mother.
oh,
Like I love Scotty.
oh yeah, I'm still in touch with all of them, So they're awesome, and he would get in a minute. Now Chris is a shy motherfucker, right? So
That's unacceptable in my opinion.
Chris is my dog. Like Chris and I are like this to this day. Like I'm godfather to his daughter. He's godfather to my son Jackson. We're together all the time. We do a lot of business together. He's in the music business too, actually.
Okay.
So I forgot to correct you when you said you're the only one. Chris has been in his whole career as well. He does a lot of consulting for Monarch, and he does a lot of A&R. And then we do, you know what? It's my bad for not, like accepting the fact that you said you're the only one who, like, I kind of forgot for a minute, which is ridiculous that I forgot because we do things together as well. In fact, little flag waving. We're on the verge of having brokering a deal for a new Ice Cube record with a company we work with. Yep.
Damn.
Brand new record. Yep.
Holy shit.
And Chris is really the catalyst of it. I have a relationship on the label side.
All right.
He has it on the artist side, and we bought it together, and it looks like it's about to happen.
Wow, that's awesome.
So he's very much.
We need to get him out of his like whatever shell, like like limelight shell, and get him on this podcast.
When I mentioned to him like coming on, he was like, "You do it first, and then we'll see." But I don't know if I could get him in the studio, man. I don't know if I could. You'd have to.
No, we'll get him in. We'll get him.
All right.
We'll work on that. Yeah.
All right, well, it starts with you, man. Listen, you're the one who spearheaded this, so it starts with you. You get it. We'll come out to you. I love Michigan. We'll come out there, get a studio session.
All right.
Do it out there.
We'll do it. We'll do it totally. But you know what? I swear. I mean, Chris, thanks so much for doing the podcast.
Yeah.
This has been great. Trip down memory lane for all of us. You know what I mean? Like representing DPC and you dogs and like our trials and tribulations into like trying to get into the rap game and our lessons learned, right? I think at the end of the day, like I would say that to anyone that listens to this, don't not try, right? Definitely. Give it your all. Like go for it.
Chase your passion because it will turn into something regardless of what you're chasing that passion for. If you pursue that passion hard, you will pursue passions in your life forever. And that will give you contentment and success. And I know that
Yep.
that did that for us. And I appreciate you thinking of me to come on this. When I first got it, I was just like, oh shit. And I was like excited right away. And then when I got your email and saw that you're like, oh wow, he's got it organized and it's real. Like I was like
We'll
really
do this
excited.
again too, for sure. We'll do
Yeah.
this again.
Hey man,
We'll bring the
I'll
other
be your
crew
guest whenever
on.
you want. I might run out of interesting things to say if this was interesting, but even listen, to reconnect with you mostly, like I love it, man. It's like you said, we've been
Ditto.
connected on social media and all that, and seeing each other's lives from afar. But now we can stay connected in a greater way. And I appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, man. All right, brother.
Cool.
Appreciate it, man.
Stay well, continue success, and
Yep.
and I can't wait to watch not only this one back, but some of the guests you told me about that you have lined up, man. A lot of them are a lot more interesting than me, I think. So kudos to you for scoring them, and I look forward to following the start of your podcast and hopefully many years of success.
I appreciate that, Rick. Thanks so
All
much,
right,
my
brother.
man.
Yeah, peace.
All
Thanks
right,
for having
brother.
me.
Peace.
Later.